Hey guys, welcome back. Today we have John Bellotti Jr., also known as Robo7. What's up, John?
How you doing, Albert?
I'm doing great, man. The first day we actually met was back at FIT. We met at Tony Caparelli's class, and you came to like talk to us about it and everything. And I really love the job that you do as a scenic artist. But then I also found out that you do all these kind of like monster illustrations and movie posters and kung fu posters that I want to learn more about.
Um, well, it's probably no secret. I think you remember from that class that I love Godzilla movies. I love kung fu
Yeah,
movies. I kind of didn't hide it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, I was never really into drawing Godzilla up until I want to say when the new movie came out in 2014. Um, I was drawing like pinup girls and stuff, and I was doing my scenic painting, my day job. And there was this online shop that was selling a Godzilla poster, and I asked for the price, and he said it was like $40, and I said, "Oh man, that's too much money for me." And now I dropped like $200 on a Godzilla toy. But anyway,
I know,
um,
I know, I know the feeling.
yeah, I know you know the feeling. I know because you're a collector too. Um,
Yeah, I just got into it because a friend of mine, Craig, who you also know,
yeah,
he is really into like collectibles, like hot toys and all of that. And I just recently started doing more of that. Like I have a Joker, and then I have the Halloween one as well that helped me with the poster for
right.
Printed in Blood, actually.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I'm slowly getting into that money pit of spending on collectibles.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so anyway, I was like looking at this, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to draw my own poster. And there's this company called X Plus Toys, and they're releasing these like hyper detailed, super screen accurate Godzilla toys. And they started popping up around 2014 or 13. And I found one of the smog monster, Hedora, which is the pollution monster, and I wanted to draw him. So I did a piece of artwork of Hedora, and coincidentally, that's what the poster that store was selling for $40. So I just ended up finishing it into like a full poster with Godzilla and the Smog Monster and like the Japanese characters on it. And I published it. I didn't publish it. I posted it on Facebook, and someone reached out to me right away. And they have a magazine called Monster Attack Team, which is a fanzine, and they asked me if they could publish it, and I was like, "Whoa! Like that's my first thing ever posting, and they want to publish it. Cool."
That's so
So
cool.
yeah, it was really cool and a little surreal. And I look back in it, and I'm like, I've since retired that poster, and I made a new one because it was my first, and it was terrible. I was still learning. So then I did another one, Godzilla versus Mothra versus Godzilla, and it did really well. And this is all on Facebook. This is before I really got hooked on Instagram. Then I did another one, Godzilla versus Destroyer, and all this was just like a side thing because I was working, but and I'll get to my job soon.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't work every day, and I had like blocks of time off, like a week here, a few weeks there, and I started on my current job called the Blacklist. It's been going, God, we just got
I
picked up the
love
season.
that show, man. I think yeah, the last season had to get cut off and kind of animated.
Yeah.
That I remember seeing on Netflix, and that was kind of a trip to see like the final few episodes of that. But the fact that they made it happen through the middle of the pandemic is insane.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get to all that stuff in a little
Yeah.
bit about the pitfalls of shooting during a pandemic. So Blacklist usually wraps around the end of May, and I'd have like 2.5 months off, and that's where I would do my artwork. And then somebody said to me, an acquaintance said, you should sell your work at a show called G Fest, which is the Godzilla convention in Chicago. Now, I haven't done a convention since I was in FIT, actually, when I did an independent comic with some friends, and we sold at the Big Apple Comic Con. So
Okay.
I did a few more pieces of artwork, and I went to G Fest in 2015. And it was a madhouse, and I sold out of everything. It was unbelievable. Like I couldn't believe it, and that's sort of what got me started on this whole Godzilla train. I mean, I could go into the whole. I mean, it's just it's
Yeah, yeah. Like I want to definitely know about the whole like convention and like kind of starting out there because I've never had my own table because I've heard stories of just like how much work it is to like go through that, but I do still want to learn what the process is and how like the whole weekend is of
Right,
like going through all of that for sure.
right.
But we could get into then um like going to college and like deciding on a career in art. Like
Oh, yeah.
yeah, because I know when I was in high school, I was always kind of iffy on choosing art as my career path because I knew how competitive it was. So, what was your reasoning to kind of get into FIT and then like go through all of that?
It's actually a funny story. Since I can remember, I've always wanted to be a comic book artist, and I was 100% pursuing that when I was a kid. And I would read Wizard magazine, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but
No,
uh,
I'm not
yeah, it
on
kind of
that
went
one.
belly up. I think in the mid 2000s. Anyway, they would have top 10 artists, top 10 writers. They would interview comic artists and writers, and this is in the 90s when comics were like huge. And guys like Joe Quesada, who is one of my favorites, who's now running Marvel, he said he went to the School of Visual Arts. So I was looking at him, looking at his work, looking at his career, and I was looking at some of these other guys. Not like, Jim Lee went to medical school. Todd McFarlane was an athlete. So for some reason, I cued in on Joe Quesada, and I said I want to go to School of Visual Arts because Joe Quesada did. So I applied to SVA. I didn't get in because of my grades. Now, what happened was one of my art teachers from high school in Staten Island, she got a job at FIT. And I told her, she was like, you should apply for FIT because I was devastated because SVA was like my
Yeah,
dream college. She said you should try for FIT because they have a program for kids that don't have good grades or a lot of money. I checked both boxes. She sort of pointed me in the right direction, and I took weekend classes there with a guy named George Rizzo. I don't think he's there anymore. He was teaching
yeah. I don't think
national.
I've met him.
Yeah, he was older when I was there, so he's probably long retired by now.
Right.
So I took life drawing classes with him, and when it came time for portfolio day, I had all my comic book stuff, my anime artwork, and they were like, "Oh, we don't want to see this." And thankfully, I took that life drawing class, and they said, "Oh, this is great stuff," and they really liked my work, and that's what got me into FIT, believe it or not. So it was my second choice, but if I don't know what would have happened if I went to SVA. I might have still been a
Right.
comic book artist, but FIT really changed my life, and I do miss it. I miss it a lot. I mean, everything good that I have in my life right now can be traced back to FIT, basically.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So we could say that the college life was really good on your end on like going into that. I actually have a funny story on the same kind of situation where like applying to FIT and everything. Um, I was very lazy during my last year of high school, so I just didn't know where to kind of go. But my own art teacher from high school was letting me. She went to Pratt, and she was telling me about the illustration department and all of that, and like where I could apply because I didn't know the differences between like the fields. All I knew was really like, oh, like Picasso and stuff like that. Like, oh, they're painters. I could be a fine artist, but I
Right,
didn't know that you can commercialize it in like illustration.
right,
So same thing. I kind of bailed on every other college I applied to. I applied to one upstate in Rochester. I applied for medical illustration, never finished it because of just how expensive it was
right.
and no scholarship there kind of thing. And then one here in Long Island for graphic design. I looked up graphic design. I was like, I don't like this. I'm not going for it.
Right.
And then FIT. FIT ended up being the only school I officially applied to. Like so if I didn't get in, it would have been a very rough year for me. But so yeah, with the portfolio review, I did like that last like life drawing where
Right.
that they say that oh you got to do a life drawing of whatever you're seeing, and it was I think I remember it being like the night before, like at 12 o'clock at night, I was panicking because I didn't know what to do because I'd never really done life drawing. So I kind of just looked out. There's actually a window back here. So I just opened up this window and just drew what was outside. And somehow it worked out. They liked it and I got in. But
Nice.
yeah, I wouldn't recommend the way I handled like applying to schools. I definitely got lucky in getting it, and like you, I see FIT as something that's really changed my life and like perspective on the art world and what I can kind of guide myself into
Right.
for a
Great.
career.
Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So so then would you suggest that that could be like your definitive moment that was just like, yeah, I could kind of make a career out of art?
It wasn't a definitive moment. There was no. I had no plan B. I mean, this is all I knew was art,
Yeah.
and I wanted it. And my parents, thankfully, were supportive. Even though they were nervous about it, they were very supportive. And my dad would take me to meet comic book artists at local conventions, so I got to hang out with comic artists and just ask them questions. And my dad would introduce me to graphic designers, and my mom wanted to be a excuse me, a window designer, a window decorator. But she wasn't pushed because her generation, they just didn't pursue stuff like that. So
Yeah, you
she
kind of
kind of
just
like,
had to grind it out.
yeah, they just got married, had kids, and that was it.
Yeah.
So she saw in me what she never had, and they really pushed me to like pursue this. My dad's like, you either do it 110% or you don't do it at all. And I did my parents are like, you had it in you, you wanted to do it. I'm like, I guess I just, I'm stupid. I just see something I want to do and I do it, like a dumb robot.
Yeah.
But I would just read a lot of interviews with a lot of professional artists. I would scour like everything they said. Like, they said, oh, they could pay their rent or they have a mortgage. I'm like, oh, a mortgage, that means they could buy a house. So I would look at those things and say to myself, these artists are making a living. Like they're homeowners and they have cars and they have a life. And I said, okay, so people are making a living because otherwise, why would this industry exist in the first place?
Yeah.
Um, and you know, like it's out there, and I've always known it was out there. So I can't say there was a definitive moment. It was just something that I knew I wanted to do, and it's just such a blur because I just sort of always put my head down and just pedal to the metal and just like went for things, and then like, oh, money just started appearing, and you don't know how it happens or when it happens. It just starts happening because you just start working and when you're able to pay the best feeling I got was when I paid my first mortgage bill because I was
Oh man.
yeah, that was because I was living at home when I got into the Scenic Artist Union, which is we'll get to that later, my day job, and we make really good money. And I won't say how much, but it's very good upper middle class lifestyle. And I didn't know how much I needed to live on. And then when I bought my own place and paid that first mortgage and maintenance, I said, "Oh, wait a minute! I only need this much to live. Like I can do this. This is really cool." So that kind of moment was like a big eye opener for me. And from that moment on, I was able to look at how much I needed to work, during the year, and then how much time I could take off, and when to do conventions, and so on and so on. So everything just kind of like fell into place for me. But I had it all set up to sort of be this lifestyle that I have now, if that makes any sense. It's all like
No, yeah, it does make sense for
yeah,
sure.
it's all by design, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can totally relate to you when it comes to like kind of everything is a blur because I feel like when you're trying to establish your whole art career and everything, you all you're seeing is like the best foot forward of like reaching like the next step or like the next goal.
Right.
And we don't kind of like sit back and see like, oh, I just made this amount of money and oh, I'm living on my own with my art. Like all these kind of things just kind of fall through the cracks and we don't realize that because we're so stressed about living life and making money through our artwork.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm going through now. And then it's just kind of just figuring it out. But then when talking to people like you, it's just like, oh yeah, it's definitely possible. It's just again making like that 110% effort
Yeah.
to keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
I could say for me that my definitive moment I feel like was when I created that final Full Metal Jacket poster in Tony Caparelli's class
Yeah.
because it ended up getting first place in the senior show. And then I was just like, all
Nice.
right, so thank you. So I was just like, if I could get this here, I don't see why I can't get it out there.
Yeah.
So it just kind of put me in a good position in life to just kind of keep pursuing it and try and get into that industry.
Yeah.
Which I know I keep talking with people and then it's just like you gotta kind of move it into LA to like work with these kind of film industries, but I'm gonna try and make it work somehow where I'm still here because
Yeah,
I you
I
know
know. I've heard that too, and I think about that. But um, we're both sort of in the same. Me and you are sort of running in the same alternative movie poster circle right now, which
yeah,
is awesome.
yeah.
I love it, and I love your work, and your work
Thank you.
fits.
You too, man.
Oh, thank you. Your work fits everything that they're looking for. Me, I do all vector, so it's taking a little bit longer for me than for guys that do like traditional painting, like you and Craig. But there's a girl in the poster posse called Chrissy Chung.
Yes, yes.
She's really good, and she does vector. And I keep my eye on all the vector artists because I just like to see what they're doing, and they inspire me. Hopefully,
There's also another one that you could. I don't know if you know him. I keep forgetting his real name, but it's Mexifunk,
oh,
who's
Orlando,
also
nice guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
Orlando. Yeah, exactly. I just bought his Alien poster
Oh,
and it's
nice.
all vector and it's beautiful, man. So you could definitely get into that with vector, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I talked to him. We message like I'll message him every once in a while, and he's really supportive of what I do, and he loves my Godzilla stuff, and he'll like share my work, and I'll, like he'll Instagram story, and I'll do the same for him. Really cool guy. I ask him questions, but the point being is that Chrissy lives in Queens, and I know this because I reached out to her and I asked her about freelancing and what it's like, and she works full time at MTV in Manhattan and she does the graphic
Oh,
design on the side. Yeah, I think she might be doing freelance full time, but I'm not sure. But this is last we spoke, and Orlando is from the Bronx. He's from New York, and now he lives in Columbia with his
yeah, that's what I was
baby.
saying. I thought he was originally just living in Colombia. I didn't realize that he was from here.
Yeah, he's from the Bronx.
Wow.
So those are two names I know. There's another guy, James Groman. He's a very well-known toy designer and illustrator. He created Barnyard Commandos, Mad
Okay.
Balls. He's the guy that
Yeah,
created
yeah.
Mad Balls. He's got a lot of his own original designer kaiju toys that he sells through, in Asia. Like he's really big in Asia. And he's a guy, he's older. He's like, I want to say he's 60. He teaches part time at the Cleveland. It's an art school in Cleveland, and he lives and works in Cleveland. Yeah, you can move out to LA. I can move out to LA, or I don't know. I've made more connections being home last year in lockdown, just scouring Instagram and Twitter, like Poster Spy, which I know
Yeah.
you're familiar
Oh
with them.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah, I looked into them back my senior year of college
yeah,
is when I was kind of dipping my toes into that. Like I was looking at their creators briefs and like the fact that people were legit getting like huge pieces of like buildings of their posters out in like LA and here in New York, and that's kind of what hooked me into Poster Spy, and the community is awesome, man.
yeah.
Like the book they just released that they kindly like had me in back in
Congrats.
two years ago, yeah, and they
Congratulations.
finally came out,
Yeah,
and yeah, amazing community. And when I first started, I kind of started like full blown ahead, like kind of really into it, and then I kind of waned back a little bit.
yeah,
But after the pandemic, and then after like doing this podcast, I'm just like, what am I doing? I gotta be more productive. So like, I'm slowly getting back into it, and like you, I'm kind of just like reaching out to these people and learning a little bit more of that community
right.
because it's so like they're very supportive and like they help you in every way possible. It's not like oh, everybody's trying to get the job kind of thing and not like help out kind of a community.
Yeah, Poster Spy, Printed in Blood, alternative movie posters. I discovered them all on social media, and they've
Yeah,
all promoted my work. And like Poster Spy and alternative movie posters, they both like made my Mad Max Fury Road poster like their freaking banner for like the day. Like Poster Spy does that
that's
Monday
awesome.
nomination. Yeah, they made my Fury Road like their banner for the week. An alternative movie poster. Like my work was on all the social media platforms. I was like, oh my god, like I couldn't believe it, and I was shocked because I submitted like Godzilla stuff to them, but Godzilla wasn't really trending. But then when I did Fury Road, that was it. And then uh, Godzilla vs Kong poster spy promoted on their Monday Motivation. But yeah, they're really good. And again, that's I didn't go out to L.A. for that. That was just me being at home playing on my phone and just finding different artists and what they do, and then like what's this poster spy? Because I heard, what happens is I read a lot of interviews with artists, and they'll mention something, and they'll mention like Tracy Ching, I think she's another vector artist, and she mentioned poster spy, and I said, wonder what that is, and I think that's how I found out about it, and I learn a lot that way. I'm very fascinated with what people have to say and their knowledge, and I just try to learn from that as much as I can, and it's been very beneficial. It's a really good way to learn about different outlets of where to put your work and where to apply and where to promote your work. So
Yeah, and then you just find the people that inspire you. I mean, like I
yeah,
have like a whole new list of different artists that I look to now for like compositions and just art styles and everything, and just like amazing work.
yeah.
So let's see. Oh, so how'd you get? Well, we kind of covered the whole how'd you get into making work for Godzilla films, right?
I don't.
Um,
Yeah, I don't make officially licensed artwork for Godzilla. Not yet.
right, yeah, but like getting into
Yeah,
like doing a lot of them and going into these conventions, like you were saying, and back in like going to Chicago and stuff like that. So I kind of want to learn more about that, and then how like you're making all this stuff.
um, I guess when it started doing well, a buddy of mine from FIT, which is funny because I didn't really talk to him too much in FIT, but we were friends on Facebook. How FIT has like the two different classes, but you're
Yeah,
all part of
yeah,
illustration. He was in the other
exactly,
one.
yeah.
We didn't really talk to
Okay.
him. Yeah, so his name was Humphrey Ching. He's a fantastic illustrator. He saw that I was doing conventions, and he's like, "Yo, like, hey, like, what's up?" And he's like, "Do you want to come down to Orlando and stay with me, and we could do the show called MegaCon?" He's like, because everybody in Orlando, a lot of people love Godzilla, but no one's doing Godzilla art. He's like, you do really well. And I said, wow, that's a really nice offer. He's like, yeah, don't worry about a hotel. Just stay with me. I got the whole table set up. I said, wow. So he like has been doing shows for much longer than me, and he sort of tutored me in how to properly do shows. And he has his finger on the pulse of like what's popular at shows. Like because of him, I got enamel pins made. I got large posters made. It's like whatever he suggested, I did because he's very smart at what he does. So I did MegaCon in 2016, and I did well. And then I did G Fest that year again, and I did very well. And then I did 5 Points, which is a really cool show that's now in Brooklyn. It's like a designer vinyl show. I did that show. I did pretty well. And then I started doing the smaller shows in New York, and then I did what was the last one? Awesome Con. Like so, my circuit was like G Fest and MegaCon every year. Those are
Right.
like my two guarantees, and I would do it during my job's hiatus. Then I did Awesome Con in DC, which is pretty good. I think I did that in 2019. I got into Baltimore Comic Con, which is okay. But my big one was New York Comic Con. I got into New York Comic Con after applying. I think I applied like 2 years or 3 years in a row. I never got in. And I finally got in 2019, and I made so much money at that show. I was exhausted by the time I went back to work. I took off of work.
Right, right.
It was like it was crazy because I applied, and the guy that runs Artist Alley is from Staten Island or Brooklyn, who lives in Staten Island, and I'm from Staten Island and I live in Brooklyn. So me and him got to know each other, and he's a really nice guy. He's an Italian guy like me from the five boroughs, and he's like, "Hey, listen, now that I know you're local, if someone cancels the week of, would you fill in?" I said, "Absolutely." So the week before, I tore my meniscus in my knee at work. Um,
Oh man.
so, and as I'm like working with the camera crew doing something called standby scenic painting, I get I think it was an email from Mike at New York Comic Con, and he's like, "Hey, someone dropped out. Do you want to fill in?" And I was like, "Oh my god!" And I couldn't scream because I was on set, so I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, and I went up to like the assistant director, who's a Star Wars nerd. I'm like, "Pete, I got into New York Comic Con," and he's like, "Johnny, congratulations, that's awesome." So I remember hobbling up to the Javits because it was literally right up the road from where I work. So I left work early on Wednesday, hobbled up there in a taxi, unloaded everything, set up, and then I showed up the next day, and it was unbelievable. And it was crazy because the guy sitting next to me, who I won't name, is a really talented comic artist. And he watched me all weekend. We got to know each other. He's like, yo, you're outselling me all weekend. I'm like, I don't want to. I was like, I guess. He's like, no, man, you're doing great. Like, you probably made like, he threw out a number, and I was like, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, it's kind of close to what I made. So it was amazing. And what happened was, every year that I did a show, I met new people. I networked with more people. And every year I noticed I was making more and more money from doing these convention circuits. And I had a whole plan at the end of 2019 where I said, I want to just do conventions most of the time and my day job less of the time. And then the pandemic hit in 2020. So that kind of put a big knife through my heart.
Yeah, I bet it did. Like
Yeah.
all of
So
us.
the big takeaway that I could impart to you on conventions is that all you got to do is apply for a table. And I can pretty much guarantee that someone with your art can get in. And you just pay for your table. Do local shows first to get your feet wet.
Yeah.
And just make sure you have friends in other cities because that really helps a lot. Or what happened was at G Fest, I met a whole group of artist friends that were like, we talk every day now in our group chat on Instagram.
That's
One of the
awesome.
guys does concept design for Legendary Studios. Another guy's an art teacher. Another guy works in an airport, but he's incredibly talented. Another guy's a graphic designer. One guy does concept art. But we all talk. And when we do G Fest, we all share a hotel together. We split all the costs. We hang out together. We got like a really tight-knit unit, you know? And that's really important when you're doing shows or you have like a community because then you could bounce stuff off of each other. You can learn from each other. And the best advice I can give when you do a show is get there early. Get there early and set up. Get there before everyone else. If you get there early, like I did Anime NYC at the Javits, because the kids at actually that's a funny story. The first time I went back to FIT to talk, I don't know if it wasn't your class, but it was Tony's other class, and they said you should do Anime NYC. I said no, I don't hear good things about anime shows. And they said, no, your work would do well. So I listened to the kids. I showed up there at 7 a.m. Nobody else was there because I'm like the old guy. Everyone else is like kids. And I set up at like 7:30, and it was one of my best shows. And then when I did it in 2019, it was like the second best show I ever did, ever. And it was at the
Wow.
Javits. It was local. I mean, it was like, how much more perfect can you get? But always get to a show early because my first show, G Fest, I got there like with 30 minutes to spare. And what I didn't know is that the artist room opens up before the dealer's room, the vendor area. So all these people were swarming in as I was still setting up. I was like sweating. I'm like
Oh
trying
man.
to sell and set up my banner. And I was like, okay, that was like the biggest lesson I took from conventions. Just show up early and make sure you have enough stock to sell at the same time. So it's not hard to do, Albert. It's really not.
Okay. Yeah. I
It's
mean,
you just
because
apply.
right, because I think the last New York Comic Con that I went to was like 3 years ago, 2 years ago maybe.
Yeah,
And oh dude, it was so packed. I'm just
yeah.
like, how can you, especially New York Comic Con, it's just like how can you like handle like that kind of traffic and then just like talking to all these people at your table trying to sell but also trying to sell to the next guy looking at all of that, you
Oh,
know?
for a show like that, you need help. And every day,
Yeah.
thankfully, I had friends and family, including my wife, that would show up every day with me and help me. Because by the last day, I started hearing like, you know, when you take like a big seashell and you put it next to your ear and you can hear the ocean.
Yeah.
That place was so packed that that's what my hearing sounded
Oh my
like for
God.
days. Like it was crazy. And the best part of shows, what I enjoy, because I love the calm before a storm. I don't know why, I'm just wired that way. And it's almost like there's a scene in the movie Patton, which is about a World War II general, and he shows up to the battlefield before the battle and just like and visualizes everything. And one of the things I like about conventions, because if you're going to go around the day of the show and try to talk to people and network, you might as well not do it at all. So what I would do is I get there early every day and get my table ready to go. and then just walk around the show floor and talk to people and just get to know people and say, oh, like you do this kind of
Right.
art. What do you use? What program do you use? Where's your business card? And you just you kind of get to know people, because if you go back an hour later when the doors open, you're not going to get to their table at all. So
Yeah.
I've met a lot of really cool people just like walking around the Javits or whatever venue I was in, just talking to people while it's calm, and after the show, like, hey, let's go grab a drink, and you go hang out with them and network, and it's cool, man. It's a really great experience for young artists, especially guys like yourself that are just starting out.
Well, it's something definitely to think about. I just gotta kind of build up that portfolio to be able to sell all that kind of stuff, because I've kind of, like I said, I've kind of been lacking on the whole like poster kind of stuff for my portfolio. I've just kind of been doing a lot of portraiture,
Yeah.
so I got to get back into that. I recently picked up again my airbrush that I was doing a lot of back in
Nice.
college,
Yeah.
because of Tony Caparelli. He like
Yeah.
kind of like pushed me into doing that,
Yeah.
and then learning about Dries Struzan and all of that.
Oh
It just
God.
kind
Yeah.
of it was just kind of like, all right, I got to learn.
Yeah.
So I'm slowly getting back into that groove that I was back in like college, and I'm excited, man. I'm really excited,
Good.
and that's why I'm kind of just asking, because who knows? Especially now that things are opening up again. Like, what do you think? Are you gonna start going back into these conventions, or are you still kind of eerie about them?
I'm fully vaxxed.
Same.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. We got brains. Anyway. Um, I don't know. I'm still a little leery about everything. I applied for New York Comic Con, but they're already talking about limiting capacity, and so I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm doing well without having conventions like networking. I'm doing a lot, like a ton of, not a ton, but a good amount of commission work. At least like one commission piece a month or every 2 months, which is good, because I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to get my feet wet too, and just build up my portfolio of commission work. I was telling a friend the other day, because my friend's always doing, he does like flea markets and weekend shows. He's always asking me, and I said, at this point, I just want to do the big shows, which is I kind of realized like in 2019, like not only the big money shows, but the shows where I can meet the most people, And sometimes you meet influential people at the dumbest little local show you could imagine, but I just want to be in a place, I'm getting older. I got a wife and I got a mortgage, and I can't run around every single weekend. I did that early on, and you'll find that it becomes like an addictive thing where it's like, oh, there's a show here. And, one time I drove 2 hours into South Jersey to the mall to do some comic book day that they told me was going to be like a big deal. And I was like, I made like $40 for the day. I
Oh
spent more money
man,
on
that's
gas.
rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you get stuff like that too. So you got to be really intelligent about what you want and what you want to do. And when I started doing this, Albert, I had no plan. I really didn't know why I was doing it. I just knew that I had a following, and that every show I did, I'd do incredibly well. So I said, I have something here, and I have to just keep doing it because I'm building up a fan base, and I never thought I'd have something like that. It wasn't until the pandemic happened where I started to like really try to figure out what I wanted to do with it. And it really wasn't until last year where I said, I kind of want to make a go of this as like a full-time job rather than like a side gig. So that's why I'm focusing more on commission work and things like Poster Spy and Printed in Blood, and just really getting my work out there. But I think it's, like I said, someone in your position, I think it's good for you to do a couple of little shows, even if it's like a weekend show, just to get used to like that grind of, getting there early, figuring out where to set up, who to talk to, and packing enough snacks. That's another thing you should always do. Pack enough
Oh,
water
okay. Yeah,
and
so you
pack
don't
enough
leave your
snacks.
table, right?
Yeah, at your table. And just make sure you have people there that can help you if you need it. Like, people to watch your table. So basically, don't be a dick. Just be nice.
Yeah.
And I think I told you guys that when I came to visit you guys. And it's a grind, man. And I think I was telling you and Craig in Tony's class, and I think it was Craig that actually you and Craig. It's just mind blowing that I'm talking to you right now, because when I did that talk, I felt good. Like the first time I did it, like I think I talked to like sophomores, so they were just like, yeah, whatever, old man. But when I talked to you guys seem genuinely interested in life outside FIT, and you were interested in what I did. And you and Craig both reached out to me and gave me really like heartwarming feedback. And I told my wife, and I was like, I don't know how to react. Like Craig, said really nice things, and you said really nice things, and I enjoy talking to you guys. And if you're learning from me, if you feel like you're learning from me, I'm learning just as much from you guys, just watching you guys grow and do your thing. And what I said to the class was that I work 8 to 10 hours a day. At my job, I run the paint department, so I got promoted this season.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, so it's less taxing on my body, but it's more taxing on my brain. But what saves me is that I go home and draw. And I make it a point now that when I go home, I try to turn off my work brain. Because when your brain is filled with stuff, it's hard to turn off. And I can meditate, I can work out, which I do.
Yeah, that's something I would have to talk about too. It's just I don't know how to do that yet. Yeah. Like I have my day job, right? And then, but I'm still working when I get home because then I turn my illustration brain on. But it kind of just coincides both,
Good.
And I just kind of add a lot to my plate. Like now I'm doing podcasting, but then I'm also doing illustration work. But also I love to do videos, like all these kind of things. And it's kind of hard to find the free time. I'm just finally learning a little bit of that balance, but I totally get that whole idea of like trying to turn your work brain off and actually relax, because there have been moments where I've had like that burnout, but as of recently, I haven't been getting them as much. But to go back to what you were saying about like when you came for a talk, dude, we were like talking about that for a couple of days about like what you do and then like kind of like how to get into that industry, because at the time me and him were trying to decide like what we wanted to like have as careers, and thankfully he has his tattooing job now, and that's like what he wants to do. But for me, I want to get into film, like working maybe on set or just doing the posters for these stuff. So like your avenue is, I was looking into a lot.
Wow.
So that's why it was just like, of course we had to talk to you, man. Like it was awesome, and just actually seeing someone there doing the jobs that we enjoyed, it just made it great.
Yeah, I think when I never had, like I said, I talked to auto artists and stuff when I was a kid, but there's no roadmap for this stuff. All my friends in Staten Island got city jobs at 21 years old, and here I am, still living at home, 23 years old, just getting out of college. They're already on their second year. They're all going to retire this year because they got on at 21. But there was a lot. Like I right out of FIT. I mean, I guess we could segue into my day job.
Yeah, let's do that.
This is probably a good point. When I was in FIT, 9/11 happened, and FIT is in Manhattan, and the one train goes underneath the World Trade Center. And thankfully, I had an afternoon class, so I wasn't in that day. And up until that point, I was dead set on being a comic book artist. Like I went with, Karen Santry? Did you have her?
Oh yeah, she was great. Yeah.
So she's a big part of this story. But she took us to the offices of Mad Magazine, and I had a friend that worked at DC, which was downstairs, and I told him I was going to be in the offices, and he said, "Come down, and I'll take you around." I said, "Okay." He put me in the office with the editor of Wonder Woman. And we talked about comics and what I wanted to do, and he gave me his card. He's like, "Send me your work." I never sent him my work. To this day, it's probably one of my biggest regrets.
Oh, man.
Because what happened was I was sort of, I mean, it's okay. I think I'm making more money now than most comic artists.
Yeah.
But you never know. You'll never know the path you never took. And that's fine, because then you don't have to live with that much regret. So what happened was 9/11 happened, and I was kind of feeling like what I did didn't matter, because my best friend at the time, his first day in a job as a fireman was 9/11, and a lot of my friends were first responders, and Staten Island got hit hard. So I felt it, and I did a painting of the first responders carrying Father Judge, and it got sent to every firehouse in New York. And they had a ceremony for me actually at the firehouse right by FIT of all places, because that's where the judge, Father Judge, was stationed at. And I remember I left, I think her name was Bobby. She was a professor at FIT. And I said,
I'm not sure of.
Yeah, I had a great time in her class, but I said, I said, "Bobby, I have to leave at 2." She's like, "Why?" I said, well, I did some painting for the fire department, and they want to have a ceremony for me. She's like, "Oh my god, then yeah, please go." I said, "Yeah, I'll be back later." So I show up, and I told my parents not to come because it's no big deal. They had fucking bagpipers for me. They had the chief of department. They had the new chaplain.
Oh
They
man.
had a giant poster of what I did. They hung it up. They had it catered. I mean, I was like, "Oh my god!" I told my parents not to come. They had a professional photographer. I mean, it was like, to this day, my parents like give me so much shit about not doing it.
I'm sure they do,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, they were pissed. So after that, I was, like I said, just a little bit lost. I was 20, 22, 21, 22 years old. Marvel just went bankrupt like in the 90s, the late 90s. So I was like, I don't know about comics if they're going to last, you know, and here we are, they're still around.
Yeah,
Um,
now they're doing better than ever. Some would say.
yeah, yes and no. But, you know, that's a whole other conversation. What was I saying? The other thing that I had an interest in when I was in high school was movies. Godzilla movies, obviously, kung fu movies. But I got really into film, you know, just film in general, like Hong Kong film, like John Woo movies and Ringo Lam. And I started like looking at Kurosawa, and then I started looking at American movie makers like Scorsese and Sidney Lumet and Brian De Palma, all those guys from the '70s, all the Mavericks, Coppola, and I was like, I want to be a film director, and that was my idea when I was 19. So that's why I was doing comics because I saw that as a springboard into film. Um, so I had my own like independent book that I wanted to publish. I had my own characters that I created. I made this whole world. And that kind of, like I said, when I went to FIT and 9/11 happened, a lot of that got put on the back burner. So Karen, Karen Santry had a class she was teaching called, I don't know if you guys do it, it's like documentary illustration. I don't think you
Oh
guys do it anymore.
no, that yeah, I don't think they even have that anymore because
Yeah.
I never saw that.
What we would do is we'd go out as a class with Karen. We went to the flower district and we would draw what we saw, like on site. And one day we went to Barnes and Noble and we're sitting up in like the mezzanine section. It was by FIT, and my friend Tom Crowley, who's a graphic designer now, he turns to Karen and says, "Do you know about a job working on Broadway that he's like, my friend does props or something, but he told me that there's like painting involved." And Karen said, "Oh yeah, it's called scenic painting, and I used to do it at a scene shop in Connecticut." And she's like, she's going on and on about painting for film. And that's all I heard was painting for film. And I leaned over and I said, "Karen, well, what the hell are you talking about?" And she
Yeah,
told me what scenic painting was and how they do backdrops and faux finishing and sets. And I said, I kind of want to do that because I want to get into film. And when she said it's also a union and you make all this great money, I said, okay, yeah, I really want to know more. Because at the time, I didn't have a lot of money and my parents didn't have a lot of money. And we were struggling financially. So I needed to make money. And the thought of doing like a day job and hustling on the side just wasn't an option for me at the time. So we went down to the union hall, the union office, and we got brochures. And out of the 4 people that went, I was the only one that was like enamored by this career. And while I was at FIT, I happened to have a job at a toy store in the West Village, and we were next to Village Comics. I don't know if you've ever have you been to Village Comics on Sullivan Street?
that one no. I
No,
usually just go to Midtown or and then
Midtown.
Forbidden Planet.
Right, they're both good. But I worked at this toy store, and one of my buddies that I worked with was a kung fu performer and an actor. And he had a whole circle of kung fu performing actors. So I would go and hang out with these guys and learn kung fu and watch them perform.
That's
And one of the
legit, man.
guys, George, yeah, I've had a very interesting life. So
Yeah,
one of the guys, George, worked at the Juilliard School. And one day before I graduated FIT, I'm panicking. So I kind of understand where you're coming from. You know, with that whole like panic, what do I do? What do I do? And we were at a bar, Kettle of Fish, and I said, "George," and I'm really drunk. I'm like, "George, I want to be a scenic painter." And George drunkenly was like, "Go talk to that guy. He's the stage manager at Juilliard." And I said, "Hey, nice to meet you. My name's John." And I gave him the whole spiel, and he goes, "I'm Matt. Call this woman Helen. They have openings, but the deadline is coming up." I said, "Okay." So I called her up. I showed up there with 2 weeks, I think a week to spare because I just found out about it. And I met Nancy, the scenic boss, the scenic charge. And I just poured I don't know what I said, but I was very sincere and very passionate about what I wanted to do with scenic painting. I said, I really want to do this. I have to do this. And I beat out 50 other people from around the world that had more experience than me, because she's like, he doesn't know as much, but he really, really wants it. And he's local and he's a really nice guy. So I got into at Juilliard right out of FIT. And I did that for about a year. I almost got into the union at that time. I was doing a union exam after hours, but I didn't get in. So I kind of bummed around. I lived at home for the next few years, and I just did stagehand work. I did production assistant work on film and TV. I did acting, believe it or not. I did animation. I took a quick animation class at Cooper Union. I was doing my own cartoon. And 2000, I'm sorry, this is so long-winded, but...
No, yeah, go for it, man. It's all good.
2008, right before there was a writer's strike in Hollywood. You probably don't remember this, but what happens is the writers go on strike, and they just go fucking crazy. Am I allowed to curse in here? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry.
They just went effing crazy, pumping out all these movies before the writers' strike, because once they go on strike, they can't make anything. So they try to rush everything. So my friend, who was in the union at the time, I actually helped her get in because she was one of Karen's students, believe it or not. She got in as an apprentice into the union. She called me up in 2008 and said, I need help on this movie I'm charging. Charging means you're in charge of the paint department. So when I say charging, that's what that means. She said, I'm charging a movie in Jersey and I need help. Can you come help me? I said, I'm not in union. She's like, it doesn't matter. They're hiring everyone. I said, okay. So I put my car on the road that I bought for $500 and got my license, and I drove out there every day for like a month, and I got my feet wet again doing scenic painting. And she's like, you should really apply for the union. And I started freelancing a little bit here and there as a freelance painter. I took the union exam. I took the apprenticeship exam right after that, and I didn't get in. So I took the test twice and didn't get in. The third time I took it, I realized the second time I took it, I wasn't doing a lot of artwork. I was doing more animation. So the third time I took it is when I was freelancing more as a painter, and I started doing my own artwork on the side. And that helped me actually get in 2010. So that's when I started my union career. So now I'm about 11 years in. Oh my God, 11 years into my union career. But that's basically the journey. And then the first thing I did was like a little independent film. Then I got into a place called Hudson Scenery Studio, and they did a lot of Broadway stuff. And right after Hudson, I got onto Men in Black 3, which was like this massive production. Yeah. So I did a part of the Chinatown set, which was all a set. I did 3 months at Marcy Armory in Brooklyn. And it's when they're in the present day headquarters. It's just this big white dome. And I just plastered and painted white for 3 months straight in this big armory.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was like my first big movie, 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. I went from that to a movie called New Year's Eve. I went back to Hudson Scenery. I did a lot of day playing, it's called, where you work for a couple of days here and there in different projects. I can't even tell you the stuff I worked on because I forgot. I got on a show called 666 Park Avenue, which was on ABC for about 6 months. From there, I got on to America's Got Talent for 2 seasons.
What kind of stuff were you doing for that, though? I mean,
I know. I had no idea they did scenery, but apparently when each act comes on, they have little pieces of scenery. Like I did a big car, like we painted like a fake wooden car.
Oh.
God, what do we do? Sometimes we just put vinyl paper on stuff. I couldn't even tell you because we did it so fast. We do it at, it was all at Radio City.
Yeah.
We were working. It was cool because the day that they would shoot, we would be working behind the stage as they're shooting out in the stage. And then I'd finish, go home, lay in bed, and then watch the show I just worked on and see the scenery come out that I just painted. It was like so cool. And from there,
that's like that instant gratification. That's great.
Yeah, it was. And you don't really get that in this business because you work on something that comes out a year later. Like there's stuff I worked on that still hasn't come out yet, believe it or not.
And even then too, because it's like scenery too, it might not even make the shot. It might just like be in it for like a second too. So you can't even really...
Yeah. Oh my God. I could tell you millions of stories. I did this table on Blacklist Had to paint the whole surface to look like it was like aged wood that's been bleached from the sun. It took like half a day to do it. And then I'm watching them film it, and they literally just turn the table upside down and shoot the other side. And I told my boss, and he was like, that's the business.
That's the job, yeah.
Yeah, so after that, I was like, okay, don't get married to your work, because most time it ends up in a dumpster by the end of the day anyway, or whatever.
Oh, I mean, I know, like, as a painter, you want to be like, let me keep this. But then also you're working on massive things that you have no room to put it anywhere.
Well, not
Yeah.
only that, I mean, you're working with a crew, and the whole idea, like, I see these fine artists and illustrators, and they sort of take like a personal investment in what they're doing, and that's fine because you want people to have passion for what they're doing. But it's also you can't be selfish, because sometimes you could start a job and not even finish it. Somebody else can come in and do the finishing touches. So we have
Okay.
a crew right now of 8 people, and there's few people I have that do the job from beginning to end, because I have to move them around now. I have to put them on other projects, and it's like you got to strategize more. Who knows who can do faux finishing good? Who can do lettering? Who could do wood grain? You know, like furniture refinishing better. And you got to just sort of move people around. But I just learned you can't get precious. You can't own this stuff because you don't own it. You know, Sony owns everything that we do. So
Okay.
they own it. So that's makes what I do on my own even more important. So I think what I learned is that whenever I had time off, or if I got out early, I just come home and draw, Albert, you know, every day. And even if I work a 10-hour day, which is about average for our industry, or even a 12-hour day, even if I come home and I'm exhausted and I draw for 20 minutes, I feel like I accomplished something for the day.
Yeah,
You know,
I've been the same way. Yeah, I
you have
recently
to.
just started exercising. Then, like with portraiture, like I have a moleskin because I have a tendency to do like a few pages of a sketchbook, but then I'm like, ooh, I like the way this one looks, and I'll buy a brand new sketchbook and not finish the original one.
Yeah.
So I'm like implementing now to like finish these sketchbooks and just like you said, if if anything, if I'm not like if I'm working all day, I at least have to like draw for like an hour
Yeah.
for the day, and
Yeah.
that way I know like I did something. I'm training myself, even if it's not like a huge thing.
Yeah. And that's the most important thing, because one thing I learned, I want to say in 2012, was like, you know, these scenic artists that come on and they want to do this beautiful work, and it's like, you know, an older Russian woman who I love to death. She's like an esteemed artist in her country of Azerbaijan. She said, you know, the work you do at home is the personal work. Like, that's the work that you put all that time and effort into. You know, you don't put the effort. I mean, you put the effort into your day job, obviously, but you know, it's not a personal project. You know, the personal project is what you do on your own time. So that's why I make it an effort to do my own work, because no one else is going to do it. And I have a momentum going, and I can't stop. And like I said, now that I'm in charge, I need that break, and I come home, and like it's even more important for me to do my own personal work, because then it's like, like I still own my life. Like, you guys don't own my life. No
Yeah.
matter how many fucking phone calls I get, which I get a lot of phone calls, text messages, emails. When I go home, I get text messages. It's like, all right, so, you know, you guys think you own me. And I'm not saying this in like an antagonistic way.
Right,
This is
like
just
not in a
like
bad way.
how I process it. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
and you'll see with your job, it's like, all right, like, you know, all right, you have me for these hours, but when I'm home, like, I'm doing this stuff. I'll answer these questions, even though I'm off the clock. But you guys don't own me. Like, I own what I do. And I'm not going to sit here and be stressed and anxious about what we have to get done when I'm just wasting time to do my own work. Like, that's when I have to put my foot down. It's not always successful, Albert. It's not
I
always,
bet. Yeah.
it's sometimes I got to come in in my little home gym and swing my kettlebells for a little while, because sometimes you just need to, you know, throw some iron around just to get your mind.
Yeah.
You got to get out of your mind into your body.
I just started going back to the gym too because I
Good,
haven't been going for like the year.
good.
And now that I'm back, so I'm like, let's do it. And yeah,
Good.
I know that feeling where you're
Yeah,
just like you have so much tension, you need
yeah,
that to like release it. So
yeah.
I go on like just on the treadmill and I'll just put like John Wick on, and then like with that soundtrack and just gun it and
Good.
like release all of that.
Good. No, it's I've been going to the gym since I was 21, and it's incredibly important, and very
Yeah, for
incredibly
sure.
important. Just not even for your art, but just for your body and your mind. And when you don't go, you feel it. I mean, it's I when I don't go, I feel like I did something wrong. I mean, that's how I am with it. But your personal work um, should be the most important thing for you, and it you have a good foundation at FIT, as all you guys do. The work that's been coming out of there, I mean, I thought we were good in 2003. I saw what you guys are doing, and I'm just like, Jesus, I wish I went to school now, because now you got all the Wacom tablets and
Yeah, yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
and like you said, it keeps getting better. I feel
yeah,
like because we have so much more access to like places like Skillshare or just YouTube in
oh
general,
my God,
you just learn so much more and
yeah,
much faster. Especially if you realize what you want to do at a younger age.
yeah,
They're gonna be ahead of us in no time.
yeah, yeah. And I got to admit, like, I'm 41 now. I got into the poster game when I was 34, 35, and I've done well, and I've only gotten into doing stuff outside of the Godzilla niche within the last year or so, and so far it's been okay. I just, I've been doing a lot of commission work that's not Godzilla, which is nice, um, and discovering Poster Spy and Printed in Blood has inspired me to do stuff outside my wheelhouse. So, I kind of wish, I don't want to say I regret not doing this stuff earlier, but I had a whole other career path, and it's
No,
a
yeah,
very, it's a very cool career, and a lot of people can't really say that they have this career, because what I do is an even smaller niche than poster art, because my union has, I think, like 400 painters, you know, maybe 500, I think, and how many digital artists are there now? Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. I'm definitely in the millions by now, especially
Yeah,
with like iPads and everything.
yeah. And that's the thing. There's so many artists now, and it's like I feel if I don't continue making art, if I fall off that wagon, that some guy in the Philippines or Malaysia or Brazil or China, I've seen it, like these artists that have like barely a roof over their head, and they're pumping out designs for T Public and making their living on T Public, but they're working 12 hours a day, and they have hundreds
Yeah,
and hundreds of designs. I mean, those guys are always behind you, and they're always in front of you. There's always these people in front of you, and when you think you catch up to the guy in front of you, there's always someone catching up to you behind you. And I
yeah.
see it all the time. And it's like you can't rest for a minute, I mean, you got to take breaks here and there, but you can't rest, because there's always someone else coming up. There's always someone else looking to you know to make their name and get involved in the community.
Yeah, I think about that all the time, and like what I was saying before, when straight out of college, I just had this mindset of like, if I don't have my career by 25, then it's just like, what am I doing? You know?
Yeah,
And it's
you can't think like that though, Albert, because
yeah,
I guess I had a career at 23, but I didn't, and I can say that my union career as a scenic artist started at 30, even though I was doing it since I was 23. And I was like you, because I was like, oh, by this age I have to have that. By that age, that's all a bunch of BS. Like, you get it when you get it when you get it. Like that guy James Groman I told you about. That guy
yeah,
is still grinding every day. Sometimes I'll call him, and he's like, yeah, I came home from the day job, going to start up the night job, and he's got a wife and kids, and he's in the studio sculpting and painting and drawing, and he's like 61 years old, and he goes, man. He's like one of my biggest inspirations. You know,
yeah. So with that, like him, like he has a whole family, but then he wants to continue his art. How do you manage like handling those kind of different lives, like your work life, your illustration life, but also making time for family?
I'm still learning that, Albert. Um,
Okay.
no, I don't. We don't have kids, so we're lucky. It's all about the partner that you pick. If you're going to pick someone that's really needy, you're going to have a problem. And my wife
Yeah.
is probably my wife is the best thing that ever happened to me. And she comes from a family of artists, and she understands art, and she knows it. Early on, it was a little hard, but we would argue about because I'd go into I had my iMac, which I'm talking to you on now, and I would draw with the Wacom, your Wacom's on the desk and you're looking up, and I would just have my back to her in our one bedroom and just draw, or I'd come into the other room and just draw, and then, we'd argue because she's getting used to it, and I'm getting used to doing the art and being in a relationship. And what changed everything was when I got a Wacom Mobile Studio Pro. A lot of money.
Yeah, that one's like crazy.
Yeah,
I remember those.
But I had to do it because I was dying to, because I wanted to draw as I was on the move, because I'm always on the move somewhere. But then I was able to buy that and sit on a couch with her and draw, and I would talk to her, and we'd watch like stupid TV shows or movies, and then it's like, oh, like she can spend time with me, and I could spend time with her, and I could still draw, and we sort of reached a happy medium. But she's very low maintenance, and she understands now how important it is for me to draw and do this, because if I don't, I get really grouchy, I get angry, I get really
yeah, dude, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I don't. The girlfriend that I have now, Gabby, she was actually in that same class that you spoke at
cool.
Tony Cap's, and she was there, and then that's kind of around the time we started dating.
Oh, nice.
So that's why I'm asking, because although she's an artist, she has her day job as a print designer, so
Right.
she gets all her fulfillment at her day job. Like, she's satisfied with doing the stuff there. So then, she wants time after, but then when I come back home, that's when I want to work on art. So that's what I'm saying. It's just like there's this kind of adjustment period where I'm just like trying to figure out when I could work and then when I spend time with her and everything. And we're still figuring it out as well and seeing what kind of works.
Are you guys living together yet, or no? If you don't mind me.
Not yet, no.
Okay.
So I'm still in Long Island, and then she's in Hoboken. But
wow.
It's where
Wow.
the pandemic kind of like slowed everything down for us. But we're getting into that like groove to like soon move in together.
Yeah.
So that'll be a whole different kind of thing. But yeah, it's just even then, even like when I'm home and then just talking with her. Sometimes I'll like go hours without responding without me realizing, because I'm at the desk like painting or something. I'm too focused in. So yeah, it's good. I mean, it's not good, but it's also good to hear that we're not alone in that sense. There's still more to adjust in that sense. So
yeah.
I
mean, it's tough because you don't live together, and I have the fortune of living with my wife. I would hope so. I'd live with my wife.
Yeah.
But it's tough. It is tough, and my ex actually was from FIT as well. We had the same class together. So when I did art with her, it was it was different. But she also had her own things going on too. But we were living apart, but we made it work. I mean, and she understood, but. For people that don't do art, they have to know that we don't do art because we want to. We do art because we have to, and there's a huge difference, okay?
Yeah.
Like, you go to the gym because you want to. You don't really have to, right? Or you order a pizza because you want a pizza, but you don't really have to have a pizza. For art, it's like you have to do it because you're going to feel like garbage if you don't.
Yeah.
And I've seen people that don't pursue art and they're miserable, and they're cops or lawyers, whatever. And they're all effing miserable. And they're all at home doing their paintings and whatever. So, you just have to strike a balance. And what I try to do is, like, let's say Monday through Friday I'm working, right? So Monday I'll come home and say, okay, I want to do some artwork. So I'll come and I'll do artwork after work, whether it's an hour or 2 hours. I want to say I'm at my tablet by like 6:30, and I'm drawing until about 7:30, maybe 8. And that time, that's like give or take. And let's say I want to get a workout in. So Tuesday, I was waking up at 4. I have to be up at 5 for my job. So sometimes I'll get up at 4:30.
Oh gosh, that's rough.
I mean, it's You know, sometimes you get it's. I don't know why it's gotten easier. It just has, but you got to do what you got to do, man. It's
Yeah.
so I'm an early riser. So I was doing these 4:30 workouts, and I come home and draw. Or if I'm too tired, I just come home and work out and think, okay, today's my workout day, and that's what I'm doing. Wednesday comes, and be like, you know what, I have to do laundry or whatever. That's a lie. We don't do laundry during the week, but sometimes we'll have to go to Costco or something. So it's like, okay, Costco day. And you tell yourself, okay, I didn't do art, but I'll do it Thursday. You come home Thursday and you do art. And the thing that I learned, Albert, was that before the pandemic, I was constantly on the move. I always had something planned with friends, family, conventions, friends, family, conventions, work. It's just constantly, I drove my wife crazy. We're going to go here that day. And my weekends were just like I go to the gym, and then I come home, take a shower, and then we get ready to go out, and then blah, 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 blah. And then maybe I draw a little bit on Sunday. The lockdown taught me that I don't have to go out every single minute, that I could stay home and do artwork. And it's been incredible what I'm able to get done because of that. So I learned that I don't have to always go out, and having a home gym helps for sure.
Yeah,
You know,
save some
you know
travels.
the
Yeah,
gym. Yeah, you know the gym is a guaranteed hour and a half between travel time, working out, cooling down, getting
yeah,
home, taking a shower, whatever. Now I could just wake up and just go through a crazy workout in 30, 40 minutes, take a shower, and be at my tablet by like 8:30 in the morning. You know, like the other day, you know, I'm off from work now, so I worked out early, went for a little hike in Brooklyn, if you could believe it. And then I was at my tablet from like 9:30 in the morning to about 5 the other day.
Oh, that's
Just, you
great.
know, and we'll talk about my process, but it's just, you know, doing my compositions, whatever.
Yeah,
And today it was like, you know, more, not as much, but, you know, more of that. And then I took a walk this afternoon. I looked at your questions, and, you know, I'm just trying to like enjoy my time off. And then I did a little bit more drawing when I came back in for like another hour before our podcast. So it's like when you're sitting there and you're playing a video game, it's like, well, I could be productive right now. I could do art, you know? Or if you're sitting there watching TV, it's like, do I really need to watch Survivor or The Karate Kid 2 for the millionth time like I do? Or do I want to draw? And I just draw. So all those moments that I used to waste, I now utilize. So it's like, if it's a half hour, I turn on my tablet and just draw for a half hour. If it's an hour, Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings now I draw. Sometimes Sunday nights I'm drawing. I utilize all the time that I was throwing away. So that's one thing to think about as well. You know, I'm sure you have moments where you're doing something that's probably not productive. You have to fill all that
yeah,
time with productive stuff. That's what I learned as I'm getting older. You know, you can't waste any more time because now you're getting older, and it's only going in one direction, Albert. You know, and
yeah,
you don't make it through
yeah.
the whole game. You don't make it through the whole show, and you know, my time could be tomorrow, or it could be 10 years from now. So I want to make sure that if it's either tomorrow or 10 years, I have a body of work that people know me from, and that I could go and be like, okay, I did all the posters I wanted to do. I drew everything I wanted to do. You know.
Yeah, that's the name of the game, man. As an
Yeah.
artist, you just want to be known, you know. And I always laugh because it's like one of those few professions where it's like your work only gets valuable after you're dead, I think.
Yeah.
And it's rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it's just you need that body of work to like showcase that, you know, you had a life, and, you know, and
Yeah.
people know you for it.
Yeah.
But like you said, I caught myself with like the wasting of moments and everything. Not that like video games were a waste, but I would spend a way too much time. Like during the pandemic, actually, I was just not working as much, like drawing as much. I was just kind of focusing on video games, and then as I came back and like the fall this year, I was just like, I don't even think I pick up a video game like maybe at once a week at most now, whereas before it was like 5 nights a week, you know.
Yeah.
And but all that time that I'm not playing now, I'm using it for the podcast, promoting it, or setting up like a new illustration,
Good.
and all these other kind of things. I actually have a gallery show coming up in LA. Speaking of which, I found out about that one, Gallery 1988. I'm
Oh
not sure
yeah.
if you're
I've been trying to crack them for a while, but they're a tough one.
so the way I got in was actually during the pandemic. I think it was in last year, September, on Twitter, which I started loving now more because there's so much more interaction there.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um, they sent out a tweet. They're like, "We're looking for artist submissions."
yeah.
So that's when I was just like, "Hey, why not? Let's give it a shot." And I sent in my work, and they were like, "Here are a bunch of different gallery shows we're doing. Let's see your work." And I was like, "Oh, okay." But these like life happens, and it was just like I got too busy. But I finally was able to find one, which is like their biggest show, Crazy for Cult,
Right.
and I did a Fargo poster for it. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, so like that I worked through that like the last 3 months, and it was just one of those things that I don't think I could have done because of like this whole like playing video games or just like focusing on other things
Yeah,
other than art.
yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing things do happen when you put in the time. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah, there I tried. I usually like I haven't hit them up in a while, but I always like shoot them an email. Hero Complex is another one that I always like try to reach
yeah.
out
I
to.
just learned about them through Dakota Randall because he
Yeah,
got a bunch of work through them.
yeah,
I'm just like, let me look into this. Let's see what
yeah.
I could do because it's
But
officially licensed work, right?
I believe so. Yeah, and I think your work is a lot broader than mine. Mine is mine's a little specific, which is why I'm branching out a little bit more and just showing people that I can do more, and that like I don't just do Godzilla because Godzilla. It's sad because Godzilla is a huge market. I can't tell you
Yeah.
the kind of money I make from Godzilla stuff, like on certain T-shirt websites and conventions, and
Yeah, to the point that people are like stealing your work too. Like
oh yeah,
that's
that's
insane.
every month I get something. Someone will, and I have really good friends and fans, and they'll always reach out to me and say, "Hey, John, I saw your work on Amazon. Is this yours?" I'm like, "No," and then it's like, "Okay, here we go."
But I
Um,
would say that you kind of take it like lightly. You kind of joke about it, like, "Oh, it looks good on the bed sheet." Like that's the
it
one that
did though,
I
but
noticed.
it looked really good, and I was like, "Come on, I want like it's." One of your topics, one of your questions is about my dream gig, and I guess we
Yeah,
could jump into that. It's doing something officially licensed for Godzilla, and I got into the Printed in Blood Aliens book, and I'm like, I'm excited because Aliens is one of my favorite films, and it's officially licensed, but it's not Godzilla. Like what the
yeah,
fuck? Like
yeah.
what the hell? And then I did something for Little Shop of Horrors. Like I drew Audrey for an official toy header. It's the Japanese toy. They call it a sofubi, and it comes in like a plastic bag. It's kind of like it's like this. This is called a sofubi. You can see
Okay.
it. It's very stylized. It's small.
It looks sick though.
no,
Yeah.
it's great. I just bought this week, by the way. It's very exaggerated, and it has header card, and header card art is a big thing. And I like, there's a lot of artists that do that, and I wanted to get involved. So I did something for Marmot Toys, and it's officially licensed. And it's Audrey, and it's not Godzilla. And I have something else coming up from another property that's officially licensed that's not Godzilla. And I'm like, what am I going to get Godzilla? Like, and I see all these companies like Mondo did Godzilla posters, so I sent them a ton of my
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
I can't get in there. I always remind them I exist. I tried Poster Posse, but the most they did was promote my work because they don't have the Godzilla license.
Yeah.
Um,
That's another one I was trying to crack too.
yeah, they're
Poster
cool.
Posse
Yeah,
and
they're cool people.
Bottleneck. I'm
Yeah,
trying to get it.
Bottleneck's another one.
Yeah.
Poster Posse's cool. They're actually pretty supportive, and they promoted my work. Very nice of them to do that.
Yeah, they were the ones that like moved me to get into the Printed in Blood book for Halloween.
Yeah,
So I was very thankful for them on that end.
yeah. Um, I was going to say, um, where else was I going with this?
But
Oh,
yeah,
so
with the licensing, yeah.
but yeah, so it's like there's a company called Cavity Colors, where it's a huge T-shirt company. They just got the Godzilla license, and I see the artwork they're putting out, and it's pretty good. And on Twitter, I'm like, hey, I want to work with you guys. And I've reached out to them on Instagram. I commented on their stuff. I tagged them, and they're like, your work is fantastic. We'll be in touch. I'm like, cool. So they post on Twitter, and they're like, they'll post about the Godzilla stuff. So I'm like, hey, and the good thing about Twitter is you can post your art. So I'm like, I'd
Yeah.
love to work with you guys. And I send them like 5 images, and they responded, oh, I love that Godzilla poster, that Godzilla Final Wars. Here's my email. Shoot me an email. We'll talk. And I shot them an email, and I haven't heard anything yet. And I know they have a bunch of shirts planned, but I'm
Yeah.
like, somebody, anybody, call me. Like, this is what I'm waiting. I'm waiting for that one phone call. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll probably get a gig drawing the X-Men before I get a Godzilla gig. It's just the way it's working right now. I
Listen,
can't
man.
explain it.
But with all that stuff that you got licensed for, it's all gonna lead to that
I hope
holy
so.
grail.
I
Yeah.
hope so. Because it's like, if there's one thing I'm gearing up for in my life is to do something Godzilla related,
I know,
So,
man. I saw the recent one versus King Kong.
yeah,
That was amazing. The fighting scenes were just top notch, dude. I was watching it with my brother, and we have HBO Max. And at
yeah,
the time, I think the movie theaters weren't open,
right.
and we were just jumping out of our seats during all those fight scenes. Man,
Oh
it was
yeah,
so good.
yeah. I'm not the biggest fan of those movies, but I'm happy they're
Really?
being made because, unlike, I was thinking about this the other day. Like in the '50s, they made a lot of sci-fi movies, like the original Thing or The Blob
Yeah, yeah,
or Them. Those movies still exist, and people still love the Universal monsters like Dracula and The Mummy and Creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein. But they're not making new movies of those characters, and every time they try to do, they're terrible. Godzilla, thankfully, is like a superhero property or James Bond, where he keeps getting reinvented and new kids keep finding out about him. And he just endures over decade after decade, and it'll keep me in business for the next until I'm dead, practically.
yeah.
You know, it was a good wagon to hitch onto, and like I said, I'm not crazy about the new movies or even the stuff coming from Japan, but it just means that more people will like Godzilla, and it'll be more opportunity for me to get involved in doing like licensed Godzilla work or just get people to look at my artwork, just get eyeballs on it. So I like the new movie in terms of the action.
Yeah.
I equate it to Jackie Chan's Police Story because if you watch
Okay.
Police Story,
That one I
um,
haven't watched yet, but I've,
oh, it's
you know,
incredible. The action, I mean, it starts and ends incredibly, but there's like this whole middle where you're just like, oh my God, come on, like get to the fighting. But when the
yeah,
fighting happens, it's unbelievable. And that's what Godzilla vs. Kong reminded me of. It was just like a lot of BS, and I'm like, okay, here it is.
yeah. I would say that the whole like human storyline during that movie was just very unnecessary, and
Yeah,
like they did that for the first one from the Godzilla trilogy,
yeah,
where it was just like more of the human like storyline, and we saw him for like a second.
yeah,
Like, so I understand in that sense, but that's why like for that third movie, that's why I enjoyed it so much, because they actually gave us these long extended fight scenes, and we actually got to enjoy,
yeah.
these things. Like the whole
Right.
boat scene was amazing, like with them in the big ships and stuff. So
Yeah,
good.
yeah. The boat scene was good. The beginning was good. The boat scene, and then the end was really good.
Yeah.
But everything else, I
Tense,
was
man.
just like, I felt like I became stupider watching. And you could tell that after the second movie, King of the Monsters, that there was so much backlash for the
Yeah.
directing and the characters that you could see it in this movie that they just went in. And I remember that they went in and they delayed the release because the president of WB was like, we want to make it the best movie we could possibly make, which means they were going to change a lot of shit. So they delayed it by about 6 months, and it looks like they cut out a ton of stuff, like characterization that would like
Yeah.
explain a lot. And did it make the movie better? In the action department, it did, but story wise, it just made it even worse. So, I'm
Yeah. I
sure
mean, kind of.
I'm sure like a Snyder cut of the movie exists somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Just I was just gonna say that, just like how they did kind of Justice League, man.
Yeah,
A lot of years of fighting for that Snyder cut, and it was very well worth it. I
yeah,
think. Just so long though.
yeah,
Um, so aside from art, then what are your other interests that you're like kind of exploring?
You know, man, if I wasn't doing art, the other thing that I never mentioned was that I was a drummer from when I was a teenager up
Oh,
until,
that's dope.
yeah, I want to say I started in high school and I kind of stopped when I moved out. So I was like from my teenage years up until, God, when did I get my own place? I was still playing. I was living at home. I bought my place when I was 33, 34. So that's when I kind of stopped playing because the drums are at my parents' house. So I would go back
Did,
and
did you hold
visit
on? Did you
them.
drive your parents crazy playing those drums?
No, because my dad was a drummer. My dad was in a
Oh,
band.
okay, that's
Yeah, when
awesome.
he was a kid. Yeah, so I started on his drum set, but I left it at my parents' house, and my dad will play it occasionally. And and when I was in FIT, actually, I was in a band. You know, we weren't super serious, but I was really, really into playing drums. Like, if I wasn't doing art, I'd be a musician right now in some form. And I remember having to make a conscious decision when I was in FIT, this focus more on. I think when I got into upper division, which for those that don't know, it's you do your 2 years associates and then you do your 4 years for bachelor's, and that's upper division. When I got in upper division, I realized that I had to put more focus into my art because that's what was a readily available career for me. So I kind of still played the drums, but I put music on the back burner, and it became like a secondary thing. So
Hmm,
if I wasn't doing art, I'd be doing either playing the drums or doing acting. I think something definitely in a creative field for sure. And if I wasn't doing anything creative, it'd probably be something with animals, like working in a vet's office or
that's
doing
cool. Yeah, like the
like
shelters or
rescue.
something.
Yeah, I'd be like the Punisher except for animals because I love animals so much. You know, I'd be like animal enforcement or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That John Wick life.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Do you have one yourself right now?
I do. Yeah, I have a cat. She's laying in a bed over there.
Oh, that's awesome. Me
Yeah.
and my girlfriend just adopted one that was in the she was there were it was like a whole litter of them, and they were
Yeah.
living under like a truck, and then a friend of ours works at a vet's office, and
Yeah.
she took them in and just like nursing them like the little kittens like this.
Oh,
And the one we're adopting, we're gonna call him Benny, but the
okay.
name that he came with was Sylvester.
Oh, nice.
So
Nice.
yeah, we're the same way, and then eventually we'll probably get a dog, but that'll be like when we move in together, kind of thing. So like going back to then like kind of like other things that we do. So, and for me, it's just photography. Like at one point, I was seriously considering, doing photography more than art, but I'm glad I didn't because then I was looking at because I work for a wedding album company, so we hand make albums and everything. So and I'm the printer for them,
Okay.
and just realizing the kind of work that goes through like working for weddings and just events, and then like them dealing with brides and everything.
Oh, yeah.
I knew very fast that that wasn't something I wanted to do, so I'm glad I got that kind of experience. But like now, I'm just kind of doing street photography, so I'll go into the city and then just learn, like, train my brain in compositions and everything, and learn that way.
Yeah.
I have
That's
like a
good.
little secret Instagram account for just my street photography that no one knows about. But yeah,
That's
like
awesome.
stuff like that.
Yeah. It, it,
Um,
it, it all it all feeds into each other. Believe it or not.
exactly. Yeah.
It really does. And even like my scenery, like when I paint sets, I mean, I think I showed you guys what I did, right? I had a portfolio with me.
Yeah, yeah. You showed some of the like I don't remember all of the scene stuff, but I definitely remember all like the Godzilla posters and stuff like that you showed us.
Yeah, I think everyone was more excited about that than the the scenery. But um, it's funny because I'll look at what other artists do, and not all of them, or I'll look at if I have to paint any textures like stones or mountains or bricks or something has to look dirty. Because I do it every day at work, I know how it's supposed to look. And I think it was you, right, that we were talking about the Joker steps.
Yeah,
It
you
was
helped
you.
me with
Okay, all right.
yeah, you helped me with the stairs, man, and I was so thankful. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I have him here in the corner, like, and then Jason's like sorry, Michael Myers is like right behind him with the
Oh,
knife and
nice.
everything. It works well. It works really well.
Yeah. But that was something because of my day job. I knew what to do, and in the Godzilla community, I have a few friends that make these incredible dioramas, and my buddy John, who MikeHaiju.com, he created my website for me. He's a legit graphic designer. He's like one of the best I've ever seen. He's like a huge inspiration for me. And he'll do these great toy photography with buildings and vehicles, and they look like they're stills from the movie. And I'll see what other people do, and I look at these model kits, and I'm like, that building looks too plastic, or that building needs to get aged down a bit, that needs to get dirty, it needs rust. And I'm like, if I had the time, Albert, I would be totally immersed in like the diorama stuff.
Dude, I'm just because I did those stairs now. Yeah. Every figure I get now, I'm just like, what can I build for that? But the stairs are huge, so now I gotta think like, okay, I gotta think smaller, but still make sense of it.
Yeah.
But honestly, man, if you were inclined, I think you could definitely do this for like YouTube and like just teach people like how to do these things, because I would be fully in there, like fully invested in seeing how you work.
Yeah, if I had more time, I do a lot of different things, but just, the artwork just takes so much precedence over everything else, and it's like, if time goes to something else, I lose time on my art. And my art, my process is so time consuming.
It's vector art, right?
Illustrator. Huh?
Yeah, it's vector art. Like, Illustrator scares me, but I know it, but I always prefer Photoshop or Procreate for my stuff.
Yeah, I'm getting into more digital painting, and sometimes I'm like, why don't I just do this? But I have like a certain look that I go for, and I'm at a strange crossroads where I'm like, I wonder if I could do just do more Photoshop stuff and see what happens. So I'm still practicing my digital paint techniques. I got Procreate. I'm always buying new brushes, trying new things out. But Illustrator now, I have it down to a science where I do my drawing really clean in Photoshop, like traditional, almost like comic art. And I bring it over to Illustrator, and I just trace it. I do image trace on my own drawing. And technically, it's not cheating because I'm tracing my own.
Yeah, it's your own artwork, and it's just vectorizing it.
Yeah, and I did that actually for my Aliens piece for Printed in Blood, because I'm looking at these xenomorphs I never drew before, and I'm like, holy shit, these fucking things are so detailed. They have the hoses on their heads and just things that I'm like, I had to make a custom brush for the hose, and I said, there's no way I can do this. I can't, because I used to just draw it and then trace over the whole thing again. And I'm like, God, it takes so much time. But with the xenomorphs, I did a really clean drawing and then just traced it, and saved me like a huge amount of time. Like, unbelievable. So now I do that. When it comes to people, I don't do that because it never translates the way I want to. But people, I can draw really quick. It's just I could like, I did an Enter the Dragon poster, and I banged that thing out in like, I don't know, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and that's with working full time, because it's just people. But when you're drawing monsters with like, it's not just like a smooth face; it's like tons of texture.
Yeah, tons of detail. Like, I've seen like the Godzilla's ones you've done, and it's just like, are you like literally there? Like, it's vector, so you have to like draw these paths, right?
Yeah.
You're not like, oh my god.
Well, no, I used to do pencil, like a full rendered pencil sketch, bring it into Illustrator, trace it all. I mean, it was like, how much longer can I make this process?
Painstaking, man, painstaking.
It really was. It was like, but when people found out what I did, they were blown away. They're like, oh my God, that's Illustrator? I'm like, yeah, I'm an idiot. But again, listening to someone's interview, I listened to Tracy Ching, who uses Illustrator, and she mentioned how she was in a rut until she discovered that she can make custom brushes. So I was like, custom brushes? So I made my own custom brushes for textures, and it goes a bazillion times faster now, where one brushstroke has a ton of texture on it. And I even did one for Godzilla has, I don't know what if you ever look at tree bark, Godzilla.
Yeah, it's like that kind of texture. Yeah, exactly.
So I made a brush that looks like tree bark, and I just draw it in, and it gives it like instant skin, like immediately. So now
man,
I can,
that
like,
just probably saved you like a whole week's of work.
Oh my God, you have no idea. In fact, before we did our podcast today, or this interview today, I went out and I came in at like 5 o'clock, and then by 6:30, I had a whole Godzilla drawn. Like, because I do it so fast now,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, like I got it down to like a sweet science, and I could do these posters a lot quicker now. Like, what used to take me months, like I just did an Ultraman poster for fun, and it was Ultraman and I think 16 monsters, and I'm like, oh my god, like what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? But I applied the same auto trace principle to it, and I started it. I want to say in like November. No, I was doing the aliens piece in October, November. I think I started it in December, and I finished it around January, maybe early February, and that's with like 16 monsters. So um, that normally would have taken me like 6 months to do. You know,
Mm,
so
damn.
it's definitely helped me out a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's like with anything, it's just you learn along the way, and then
Yeah,
you realize like, oh, this could have saved me so much more time back when I first started these things. But
yeah,
you won't know until you actually do it.
yeah, yeah. It's very true.
Uh, yeah, like I'm still working on my like getting faster for me. Like that Fargo poster took me a while, but
Yeah,
again, it's like when you have the day job and everything, kind of eats up on that kind of timing.
yeah.
Um, so then let's talk about one of the bigger questions that always kind of stump people. What is success to you?
Let me see what I wrote down for that.
Usually people are just like, oh, heavy.
What I wrote was, I don't know. I've tasted it here and there, and it feels no different. But I guess if I'm making what I make now in the film business with my art, I'm like 100% on board with that. Like if that's, I remember the, I listen to a lot of celebrities and wrestlers and not celebrities but actors, and I listen to how they get started or athletes. And I remember Eddie Murphy said one thing when I was a kid, and he was talking about how he wanted to be a comedian, and his father said to him, you know, what do you think, you're going to be rich? And he goes, and this is not verbatim. It was something along the lines of, if I can make what a school teacher makes doing comedy, I'm okay. And his dad was like, okay, then that's realistic, and you should do it. And I kind of had that philosophy that if I can make what this person makes or that person makes, or like I said, what I'm making now, I'm okay with that. You know, middle class, upper middle class, as long as I could continue my lifestyle. If I got to get rid of a few things, so be it. But I'm not high maintenance, and if
Yeah,
I could just do my art and just, like I said, what I'm making now, then I'd be pretty good with that. That's, to me, that's success.
yeah, that's exactly my kind of mindset.
Yeah,
Even like back in college, I was just like, I don't need to be famous, but
yeah,
I just need to like make enough money where I'm living off of my artwork.
yeah,
That's what's paying my bills.
yeah,
So that has always been like my kind of answer too.
yeah.
Um,
And you know what? Drew Struzan is a artistic hero of mine, and I think a lot of modern poster artists all sort of just mimic him. Like some of
yeah,
the
I
best guys
mean,
in the some of the best artists I see in the industry now all just copy him, and I mean that respectfully because he's amazing and these guys are amazing. But I look at them and I look at him, and there's not much difference. They do the same like white highlights, and they have the same
yeah,
brush
yeah,
strokes when you zoom in. I'm like, all right, that's cool. But if you read his book, he was hustling, man. I mean, he didn't have a lot of money. I know his
yeah,
documentary paints like a pretty picture of him, and as well it should. But he, like when he did that Thing poster, he did it overnight, and he
yeah.
would
And it was
work
like still wet when he
still
gave it to
wet.
them and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he was hustling, and he was just trying to feed himself and pay for him and his wife and pay his rent. And he really didn't become who he was until I want to say the 90s, when people started like collecting his work, and directors like Del Toro and Frank Darabont like were like, no, like this guy is amazing and people need to know about him. Because before that, there's another guy who was his contemporary who I just discovered, which is crazy because he illustrated every other poster Struzan didn't illustrate. I think his
yeah.
name is Green or something. I got his name. I found his website, and he did tons of, and he still does traditional painting. He's a traditional painter. And like I said, whatever Struzan didn't do, this guy did. I can't remember. I'm totally forgetting his name, but I just learned about him. But everyone knows Struzan because he had the more.
Yeah, because he's the more like the bigger known name now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there's like a whole like set of artists around his time that was just killing it too. It's just like a bunch of them, because the industry was so big when it came to poster design.
Yeah.
But same thing. It's just like when it comes to the podcast, I blank, and then when I'm out of here, it's like I know it now. I know it.
Oh, it always happens. It always happens.
Yeah.
But Struzan, I think, lucked out because he got to work with. He sort of. There was the modern Hollywood blockbuster didn't start until Jaws, basically, and he sort of came up at the right time with Spielberg and Lucas and those guys and John Carpenter. Oh my God, his stuff, Big Trouble in Little China. I have that hanging up on my wall over here. That's one of my favorite movies and favorite posters. But he was just talk about right time and the right place, and I mean all of those guys. They were. Robert Zemeckis, they were just making movies. Zemeckis was like, I want to make a time travel movie, Back to the Future, and I wanted it to be fun. And he had no idea it was going to be one of the most popular films in the history of cinema. These guys were just working. They didn't.
Yeah, they're just trying to feed their families, like you said.
And I think that's the right mentality to have when you do this stuff. I mean, everyone's like congratulating me for running. For getting promoted at work and because it's a pretty coveted position, I guess. But I never wanted it. I just wanted to work. I just wanted to show up, do my work, go home, do my artwork, live my life. And when my boss told me a year ago he was retiring and he wanted me to take over, I pushed back. I was like, I don't know, man. I got to think about it. I got the whole setup here, a whole situation, a whole lifestyle. I don't know. And then COVID hit, and it hurt a lot of industries, and I was working steadily throughout, and I took the position over this January, and I'm still here, and I still have a job, and people were thanking me and congratulating me and commending me, and so I guess I did something right, and all I was doing was just showing up and making sure stuff got done. That's all I wanted to do, just make sure we could all go home, and then we're not getting phone calls, we're not getting yelled at. That's just the mentality I have about everything I do. And with social media, it does get dangerous because when you start seeing people's followers and how many they got and comments from people, like, I'll see artists that start a new account and then you see galleries you're trying to get into begging them publicly to submit their work. And it's like, oh, man, like, that guy just got on. And,
I know.
I know you know what I'm talking about because it creates this sort of like this anxiety and this almost jealousy and competitive you never knew about until you saw it. So it's like, why that guy but not me? And it's like you got to realize there's enough work for everybody, And I did this stupid thing where I was like, oh, I want to know who follows me and unfollows me, and I'll never do that again. Because you're like, why
that's a deep hole that it's hard to get out of. I never really got into that. I've known people of doing that, like, and it's just not good because then you're always just going to be thinking about that, and then it's going to affect your work. Because then at that point, then you're just saying, oh, I'm going to make this because I think this is what they want. Yeah. But what you really got to do is just create the work that you like, and then that's when the people will come. Which even then, it's just like the algorithms now for like Instagram are terrible. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like Twitter is so much better now because even if someone just likes it, it still shows up on other people's feed that they liked it and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's how I found out Printed in Blood. I found them and I tagged them on I did a Gamera poster. Gamera's another monster. And then they retweeted it and they said, how did we never work with this guy before? Like, let's do something together. And I was like, dude, let's do it. And then they said, join the message board, and here we are. I fell in, what you'll do at conventions too, which is a dangerous mistake that I made, is that you fall into a rut of what you think you should make to sell. And I only did what I loved, and it worked out for me. But I got into a point where people come to the table and say, "Do you have this movie? No. Do you have that movie? No, I hate that one. No, 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 no." And it's like, well, should I do something that I don't have passion for, but other people do? And sometimes I would. And I'd try to like second guess or try to get, say ahead of people and be like, they're going to want to see this. And my buddy who I do shows with, he was like, "John, do what you want to do. It doesn't fucking matter what they want. If they like it, they like it." So I go by that, but every now and then I might do something like there's a movie called Godzilla Final Wars. And I hate this movie. It's goofy fun, but every show I did, Albert, from the moment I started up until the last show I did before the lockdown, they said everyone that would come up to me at every show, like 9 out of 10 people would say, "Do you have a Final Wars poster?" And I said, "No, I hate that movie. No, I hate that movie." So last year during the lockdown, I said, I have this time. There's a lot of monsters. There's like 11 monsters in this movie. I know how to use this program a lot quicker. I think I could do it. So I managed to bang it out in like, I think like 3 weeks, maybe a month I did it. And it was huge. And it's like my number one seller on a certain t-shirt website. Like unbelievable seller. Unbelievable seller. It's like...
That's great.
If it wasn't my Godzilla vs. COVID piece, it was definitely this Final Wars piece. And it's like, the thing is just printing money. And sometimes you do have to listen to what the audience wants. Because if you do something and they're demanding it, sometimes you have to give them a little. You know, you have to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but in a way, I was saying was just like you think they want it, but in your case, they were asking for it. You know, like they were like, "Can you please do this?" Yeah, yeah. Like they were legit asking you, so you had something to be like, "Okay, I'll do that for them."
Right.
But like in the sense that I was talking about was more of just like you're just putting work out there and then nothing's hitting, and then you're like looking at other people's work and seeing what they're doing, so you try and do the same thing because you think that's what people want to see, but it just doesn't work out that way, you know. Like, just got to make your own, like they say, it's your own style, and then you just gotta, and like, people will come, you know.
Yeah, it's if there's one thing I heard a lot about my work is that everybody says the same thing. They say, "I can tell you really love this stuff." And I'm like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, it shows a lot." And everything I did, people say that. And I think that's the most important thing. Like what's one of your favorite movies off the top of your head? Can you think of anything right now?
One of them has to be like Taxi Driver. It's been on my list for a while now.
Right, and that's on my list too. What's one of your least favorite movies?
Huh. I mean, it's cliche because everybody hates it, but it's like one of those, like the ones that really annoyed me was The Room.
The Room?
That really like camp, like weird one with that A24 made a mockumentary of it.
Oh yeah, with
the
James
disaster
Franco.
artist. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Because I told myself like it couldn't be that bad, and it was that bad.
It was that bad. The movie that comes to mind is like Halle Berry's Catwoman. Fucking awful. Now, if I guarantee you, if someone said, or if you wanted to do a personal project, right? And I know you did Taxi Driver and it looks awesome, but if you wanted to like make a full-on movie poster for Taxi Driver, it's going to look sick because you love the movie. I could tell you love the movie. And how could you not love that movie?
Yeah.
If someone said, "Can you make a poster for The Room?" it's going to look like you just took the job because you had to like, your car's in the shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Struzan loved everything he did because he was doing these movie posters before the movie even came out. So how was he supposed to know? But
exactly, yeah.
If it's a fine line between a passion project and commerce and commercial art. So unfortunately, you do have to do this stuff. Like when I did Godzilla vs. Kong, I have a hard rule of not doing a poster until I see the movie, because then I could add more elements. But I actually did that before the movie came out, and it felt a little weird because you don't have an attachment to it, but that's the job.
Yeah, that's usually how all these posters have to get made. They're not even seeing the movie now. They're just seeing like they're getting sent these like movie stills and like
Yeah.
captures of like the actors, and that's it.
Yeah.
And like as the benefits of the alternative movie poster community is that we've already seen the movie thousands of times. We'll go through it and get all these little elements to add to the poster. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how like Drew Struzan and all of them did it and like managed to make these amazing compositions without even seeing the movie. We could get into that now. Do because because we're talking about how we care about what other people think, and sometimes we create work that we're not passionate about. Do you critique your own work, or do you have other people like view it before you release your posters and stuff?
I have one friend, Nick, and he's like my partner in crime with that stuff. And I'll privately message him. I'm like, hey, like, what do you think of this or what do you think of that? But I got it to a point now where I know what I want, because my process is now more. The way I work is I work from photos, like you, and
Mm-hmm.
what I do now is what I've always done is I take all the photo reference I want to use, I cut them all out in Photoshop, and I make a collage of what I want it to look like, my whole
Yeah,
composition.
composite.
I composite it with the photos, and I like to work with crazy, psychotic, bold colors. So I really mess around with the saturation and all. I do all that in Photoshop. Like the past 2 days, I spent 90% of my time doing compositions for two Godzilla posters and Mad Max 2 because I want to do a Mad Max 2 poster. So it's like days and nights and weeks of looking for photo reference, and I compile them all into folders and I upload them, and I painstakingly, cut them all out, and I always make
Yeah,
sure I have more than I need so I could pull pieces and use all my elements. So I do a lot of the heavy lifting before I set pen to paper. So I kind of know how things are going to look, and I'm very much into. I'm not an illustrator in the way that I tell a story. I'm more about I love composition and I love placement of figures. That's like my joy in doing all this in movie posters is that like I can't do I could probably do with like a guy like Norman Rockwell can tell a whole story in one cover. I don't know
yeah,
if I can do that. It's going to take a lot of time for me to do that. I really love collage work. I love compositions and designing. I guess it goes back to me wanting to be a film director with, the frame and where you place people. Like I'm really anal and OCD about that stuff. So that's really important to me. So I kind of know how things are going to look, and I'll send, like my friend Nick, I'll just say, hey, like real quick, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of this? But I've been doing that less and less because I'm getting more and more confident with what I'm doing.
yeah,
And once in a while, I'll ask him and just see what he thinks. And he'll like my Halloween poster I didn't get into that Printed in Blood book because that poster I struggled with because that was my first, it wasn't my first non-Godzilla poster, but it was for a movie that I love, but there wasn't a lot of elements in the movie for me to really
yeah. I
draw
struggled the
upon.
same way, man.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's been done so many times. It's like one of those
Yeah.
movies that has thousands of posters each year made for it,
And
and
it's the
it's
same thing. Michael with the knife, Laurie,
yeah,
Loomis, the leaves and the house, and I'm like the
yeah, yeah,
pumpkin.
yeah,
And I did that, and I'm like, this isn't really unique. And I saw what got in, and everything that got in was incredibly unique so far. And I saw stuff that didn't get in, and it's unbelievable. Like I saw one artist, and she's incredible, like an
no, yeah.
incredible
When
pencil
they
work.
released like when they emailed everybody about everything, and then the people that didn't get in and they were showcasing that, I was just like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah,
Like it's insane.
yeah,
But it's the name of the game, man. They can only select a few, but I'm
yeah,
excited to see the actual book and see like all the other ones that got in
yeah.
because I actually submitted two different posters for it
Oh, nice.
because I just couldn't figure out which one was going to end up working, and then the editor was just like, "Yeah, just submit both, and one of them should get in." And yeah, no, but it was a very tough one to do. Like I
Yeah,
remember seeing that pumpkin one with everything happening inside the mouth and the
yeah,
eyes.
yeah. That
I
was
was
great.
like, dude, wow. Like
Yeah,
that's one that I haven't seen ever, And it's just
yeah.
like I think I went through 20 different thumbnails, and then three of them made it to like the sketch phase, and the
Yeah.
two that I finished were the ones that I submitted, but only one of them got in.
Yeah,
But I said
I kind of wish I did a few more. Like aliens, for some reason, I knew. I don't know. Aliens, I was like, I'm doing this. I do creatures.
that
I'm
was a
pretty sure
short deadline too, right?
that was a much shorter deadline, and I don't know how I did it,
Yeah,
but I did it. But Halloween, I had the time, and I found a lot of great photos for Halloween to use. And I think I just when I saw the other stuff that didn't get in, not that it was the exact same thing I did, but it was pretty close. And I saw another artist on my friend of mine on Twitter, and we were messaging each other because we both do vectors. And I said, "What did you submit?" And he showed me, and I showed him mine. And he's like, "Dude, how'd you not get in?" He's like, "This is what I did," and what he did was kind of similar. And I'm like,
yeah,
I think just like 200, like hundreds of people just submitted the same goddamn thing. And it's like, well, how many times could we have the same composition?
exactly. They kind of just had to pick through which ones, and like
Yeah,
they can't have all of us in there. And I think
yeah,
they're also dealing with the actual licensor too, and like they're
yeah,
also deciding on which ones get into that book.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah. I mean, the good thing with Printed in Blood, they always have a new book every year, so they're
Oh,
always
yeah, no,
pumping them things out.
I actually talked to those guys a little bit. When I didn't get in, I sent them a message and we were talking, and he told me about a property that I think they're getting, and he was like, he thinks I'd be a good fit, and I said, okay, and I'm really excited. I'm not going to say what it is,
Okay.
but you could probably read between the lines of what it might be. Um, but it's not official, so I'm not saying anything. But if it happens, and I get in, I could probably walk outside of my building, get hit by a car, die horribly, but be happy because I
Yeah.
know, it's one of those
Yeah.
things. So
Okay.
hopefully it happens. Hopefully it happens, and I'm gonna keep up with those guys. I mean, they did the Hannibal book. I never watched the show. I'm not gonna submit anything
Yeah.
because I don't know anything about it. And if it's gonna be
Yeah, they
something
have a
that,
bunch of different properties for sure, like that you can pick
yeah,
through. So I'm
yeah,
definitely gonna like consider doing another one for them.
you should.
But
You should.
yeah,
It,
yeah,
it, it helps to know the property, but I guess it doesn't hurt to just throw something out there that might, I never watched Hannibal, but they have a Hannibal book.
yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I'd draw what's his name and maybe it gets in. Who knows?
One thing I struggle with when it comes to like poster design is just then like the illustration part I got, that's fine. But then it's then when it comes down to the typography, that's where I struggle the most with.
Yeah,
Like,
same here.
well, how do you deal with that?
Well, the Japanese typography, for me, I took Japanese in high school, and I'm not fluent in it whatsoever. But I just sort of look, if Japanese typography, for some reason, because it's basically like little pieces of artwork, instantly make a poster look a million times cooler than using like English typography. So what I try to do is like, I I draw a lot of the typography, or I have a friend of mine, August Ragoni, who has worked in Japan, lived in Japan, speaks Japanese, translates Japanese, and he helps me out a lot. And I'll just like copy and paste whatever he gives to me and just paste it on there. But with American stuff, the American films are different because the Japanese films, they still do like the title and then they have like a headline like, Godzilla's arch enemy from space comes to wreak havoc. American films don't
Yeah,
do that. American films are very minimalist, and there's not as much typography. If it's like I did Mad Max Fury Road, and I actually just found a PNG of the actual official movie title, and I just put that on there, and it was done. Or if
okay.
I see something, I just try to find a font that looks close to it, and I just Enter the Dragon. I found a font that looked like a '70s era font, and I just did it all myself. I type it out.
Yeah.
But
I
I'm
think
same
that
boat
with
as you.
Yeah, like I think with me sometimes I'm just like I could do this. I can like create my own title font, like or just like
Yeah,
redesign it in a way that makes it unique.
yeah,
Because I don't know if when you were at FIT, I know for like the last year you needed like for me, for the last semester, we needed to get a mentor for our last project for our
Right.
final,
Yeah.
and I managed to get Gabs to be my mentor, and he's the one that helped me do the Full Metal Jacket
Oh,
poster.
cool.
So like with him, like all his posters, he's like pumping these like different title fonts on his own, like that aren't like just the regular title treatments. He kind of makes his own, and I'm just like, why I want to do that. Like I want to learn that. So I've
Yeah.
kind of just like been implementing like reading all the like graphic design books on just like title treatments and stuff, and just getting different books on like just movie posters. But
Yeah.
it's definitely something I'm still struggling with and trying to like figure out that I haven't been able to crack yet.
Yeah. It's just I do the same thing. Like I read up graphic design. I try to study it as much as I can, and like Halloween, it was just I put the I just vectored over the
Yeah,
official
yeah. For
title.
that one, I did the same thing. It was just like I found a similar font, and then I just kind of tried to match it up to it as close as I can.
Yeah, I just look at what's existing and try to go from there. I mean, you could sketch out, your own logo or title and vector over it or something. That's what a lot of people do. I'm similar to you. Like the illustration stuff is where I focus more on. Um, but if it's the typography, like I said, it just depends what it is.
Yeah.
I want
Okay.
it to look like the my goal as a poster artist was when I did these Godzilla posters, I wasn't crazy about the ones that were in existence. So I wanted them to look like what I thought they should have looked like. So that's why I'm very photorealistic, and that's why I'll just reuse the same fonts that they did, and just made it look like an official movie release. So that's always kind of been my philosophy when I do these posters. Is just make it look like the real poster release, as opposed to like a fan poster.
Like a fan made one, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Speaking of
that's
which, I
kind of where I
follow
come
this. Yeah, I follow this Twitter account called. It's just like this titled "Awful Fan Made Movie Posters,"
from. Yeah,
which I think some of them are just parodies of just like some people are just like purposely doing it,
yeah,
and it's like just funny hearing like that. Like you don't want it to be fan made, but then you got these kind of posters,
yeah,
which are pretty funny out there.
yeah.
Um, so do you want to get into then like the mistakes you've done with your art that you've learned from?
Yeah, I was trying to think about that. I mean, I don't remember what I wrote, but let's see what the hell I wrote. Oh, always save your work and back it up. Tablet would
Oh
crash.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Especially with Photoshop and Illustrator, man, they're not as reliable as they used to be.
yeah. I was doing a toy company in Japan wanted a sample of the Cyclops from a Harryhausen film, and I was trying to, and I did this great. This is when I just started messing around with digital painting, like seriously, a couple months ago, and I did a ton of work on it, and I saved it, but I didn't back it up. And when I tried to open it, I couldn't open it, and I had friends try to open it, and they couldn't do it, and I had to like. And then the job ended up not happening anyway, so I was just like, I did all that
Oh man,
goddamn
yeah.
work, and I didn't like back it up to Google Drive. I was just like, oh my god, and that's happened countless times with poster work that I've done, where I just forget to save it, or an Illustrator it crashes whenever I do the gradient tool, and if I see it getting weird, I save it right away now. So that's
Okay.
definitely the biggest mistake I've made is not saving enough.
Yeah, like I've been working now to scale with
Yeah,
my in Photoshop, so like I'll be doing like 24 by 36, 300 DPI, right?
yeah,
And then I comes to a point where I get too many layers, and then yeah, it'll just stop responding, so I have to force quit. With working to scale, sometimes they give you the recovered file, and you're able to like come back to it, but
right,
sometimes it doesn't, and then you lose all that work.
right,
So like same thing, I've learned to just kind of save everything as I'm working. Like every 10 minutes, I'll do that,
yeah,
and then but there's times where I do back it up on like my external hard drive, but I think I've gone through like two of them that just ended up just crashing completely, and I've
oh,
lost
wow.
all the work inside these like external hard drives, man. So
Uh,
yeah, it's tough, and So I've been looking more into like solid state drives, which are safer, but again, they're super expensive now, and it's just
Yeah.
mistakes were made for sure.
Yeah. No, I have everything backed up in Google Drive, and then I should do it after I get off this computer. Is just back that up to my USB drive, so I have it like two separate places.
Yeah, yeah, because you never know when Google could crash too, you know?
Yeah, some cyber attack from some North Korean
Yeah,
hackers or something. You know,
yeah.
you gotta be careful.
All right, so now we're coming down to like the last two questions. So, advice for people seeking a career in art and and just poster making or scenic art.
Just do it. You know, if you want to do it, just do it. Don't don't waste time. Um, Immerse yourself 100% in whatever you're doing. And if you're not giving 100%, then don't do it because the arts wait for nobody, and they're not going
Yeah,
to wait for you. And you have to make it happen. Whatever it is you do, you have to make it happen, and you have to just got to get after it 100%. And whatever, like I said, whatever it is you do, if you want to do poster work, you talk to poster artists, you see what they're doing, you see where the market is. If you want to do what I do, you know, watch the movies, look at the credits, look at the names, find out the unions that do that kind of stuff, research it, research the kind of work that goes into it, the hours, the pay. I mean, just do it. I mean, it's really if you
yeah,
don't do it, it's not going to happen. You know,
yeah.
that's
It's one of
really
those things
the
too that like when it comes to that, people don't want to do all that work of researching. You know, they kind of just want it handed to them. And that's a whole other thing. You know, you got to learn to have discipline. You got it's a workout in its own to learn
yes,
discipline. You know,
yes,
and that's
exactly.
the only way.
That's the big thing I didn't say is you have to have the discipline to get a job, the discipline to come home and do your own artwork and do it consistently and continue to try to learn, take classes, talk to your buddies. When I was getting into scenery, when I was in FIT, I remember going to the Barnes and Noble that used to be in Astor Place because there was a big one, and I remember going into the basement and reading books on movie making and scenic painting. I'd just sit on the floor and just read for hours before I'd go to the bar and get drunk. I would just go to the bookstore because I wasn't wasting time. I needed a job, and I would just read. And then Karen Santry, who I owe a lot to, senior year of FIT. I don't know why I didn't say the story earlier, but I guess it's a nice way to sort of come back to it.
Yeah,
I told her I wanted to be a scenic artist, and she's like, you know, we never really had a lot of graduates get into that. And coincidentally, the woman that's my foreman on the blacklist also went to FIT, which is so funny. But there's no classes for it at FIT, as you know. So she
yeah.
said, I'll go and buy you scenic paint. I'll buy you brushes. I'll buy you muslin to paint a backdrop on, and that'll be your senior thesis. And I'm like, are you sure? And she's like, it'll be
Oh
a win-win
wow,
because
dude.
if you get out and you get a job, it looks really good for the illustration department, and you can help people get into it. I said, you got a deal. And that was our little arrangement. And when I got out, I mean, that's the backdrop that got me into Juilliard. Like, that's what I showed them. They were like, okay, this guy can paint. And I would do backdrops there. And when Karen came knocking, she said, I have a young girl named Kristen who wants to get into the union, but she wants to try to get into Juilliard. So I had to come up to Juilliard, introduce her to people, showed her around, and I helped her out as much as I could. She didn't get into Juilliard, but she got into the union as an apprentice. And, you know, she had a whole career until she got a divorce and moved away and lives in another state. But, you know, I made sure I paid it forward for Karen. And whenever,
Yeah,
like, Tony would ask me to come talk to the kids, I did it without hesitation. You know, I said, absolutely. And it sucks that I haven't spoken to anybody in like a year because I'd love to get back there and tell them, like, you know, there's a whole world out there, guys. Like, you can make money at this stuff. Like, I'm living proof that you can make money doing art. It's not a trick. It's not a secret. It's a real tangible thing. So, you know, Karen was really fundamental in supporting me. And one piece of advice I'd like to give is that if you do get to a place that you're fortunate enough to make a living, pay it forward. help the next person, and just don't worry about don't worry about tearing down other people. Worry about making yourself better. Focus on yourself. Just get better. Just constantly try to get better. I hate everything I do, Albert. The second I draw something, I look at it and
I'm
I'm
the
like,
same way, man.
yeah, that's awesome. Never lose that. Once you get comfortable,
Yeah.
you might as well just stop, and I'm like, okay, I did that. Maybe by the time I'm like 80, I'll finally learn how to do this art stuff because I don't know how to do it now, but I'm going to keep trying, And
Yeah, I mean, that's when it gets boring though, when you feel like you know everything, but
yeah,
there's always something to learn with art, yeah.
yeah. But if you look at my illustration, my posters, I still use vector, but it changed. It went from real basic vector stuff. Now it's more painterly, and a lot of that is because I got bored and I wanted to learn
Yeah.
something else. Now I treat Illustrator like Photoshop, which is stupid because I should just use Photoshop, but I don't because I'm an idiot. But it changed, and people are like, "Wow, I can't believe you get Illustrator to do that." And I'm like, "Yeah, me too. I don't know how, but it does." So it's just about growing and adapting and trying new things, really. But
That's
yeah, I
awesome,
think
man.
that's the best advice I can give people.
Yeah, and like the big thing from that was just paying it forward. Always
Yeah,
bringing up the next group of artists, because
yeah,
it's a competitive field, and it can be lonely at times, and
yeah.
it's
It can be
important to
very,
have that supportive group.
yeah, because you know what? If those kids at FIT, they told me to do anime NYC. I said, sure, I'll do it. And I met one of the guys that does the toy stuff for Diamond Distribution, and he likes Godzilla. But I met him from doing that show, and it didn't, nothing has come from it yet. But I still I try to
Yeah,
keep in touch with the guy. But if I didn't listen to those kids, I wouldn't have gotten in. And now, like, I thank those kids. And you know, like, what if one day, like, I talk to you now, and I talk to Craig, and what if one day you're in a position where you're like, hey, John, I know you love Godzilla or Bruce Lee or whatever, or Mad Max or whatever, all the stupid shit I like. Like,
yeah,
we have this project coming up. Would you want to be a part of it? And I'd be like, that'd be awesome, Albert. Thank you. Like, that's how it works.
yeah,
And then if,
exactly. It's all networking for sure.
if I see something that looks like, oh, there's going to be, let's say a Scorsese retrospective and they want some work done. I'd be like, well, Albert's the guy. I mean, I'd love to do Goodfellas, but I know if there's other opportunities, like if Printed in Blood did it, I'd be like, hey, let's
Yeah,
both try to get in that book,
for sure, man. Yeah,
So,
that's what it's all about, man. And that's what I was saying in the beginning. It's just this community that we're in is just so supportive, and everybody's trying to bring each other up. Nobody's really
yeah,
pushing each other down.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not a toxic environment, which is very important.
yeah. Because let me tell you, scenic painting used to be very toxic,
Oh,
like
I
really
mean,
toxic.
it could. At one point, I was trying to get into mural painting, so I was like applying to like Colossal Media and their overall murals. And
Yeah,
I just started like with people that were already in there, they were just saying it's like very like frat boyish in that sense.
yeah,
It's just like a lot of hazing and stuff like that. And it's just like
yeah,
a very rough gig. But again, pays well, but you got to have
yeah,
the heart for something like that.
yeah, yeah. But scenic painting can be like that too, and
Yeah.
it's like you're swimming with the sharks sometimes, and it's sink or swim. You got people that try to bully you, or if you're like the next young painter coming up and someone's older, they'll be jealous because you're getting hired and they're not. And it's kind of all in your face where you'll get laid off and find out that someone else didn't get laid off, and it creates this sort of weirdness. And I
Yeah.
try not to do that in my job. You're not always successful, but you do your best. But yeah, it's changing. A lot of changing of the guard is happening. A lot of those people are retiring. So it sounds
Yeah,
like that's just
everything's getting much better. I'm
yeah,
seeing now for sure.
yeah.
All right, so we're down to our last question, which is always the fun one. So, any movie recommendations or recent ones you've seen that you liked?
So, do you ever hear of a movie called Streets of Fire?
No,
A lot of people haven't. It was a big bomb in the '80s. You ever play a game called Streets of Rage?
couldn't say I have. No.
How about Final Fight,
Final Fight. That one sounds familiar.
Double Dragon?
Double Dragon. No, you're
All
losing me
right.
again.
You played Street Fighter though, right?
Street Fighter, yeah, of course. That one, Mortal
Do you
Kombat,
know the
all that stuff.
character? Do you know the character Guy and Cody and Sodom? You know those characters? Guy is he's got like a red ninja suit on,
Okay, yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, I know I'm looking real old right about now. Anyway, so Final Fight and Streets of Rage were like a side-scrolling beat 'em up game. We just, like the like the girl, like the daughter of the mayor got kidnapped in Final Fight. So Cody and Guy have to go rescue her and go beat up the Mad Gear gang. So those games were inspired by a movie called Streets of Fire, which I always knew about, and it just popped up on Netflix. And I put it on yesterday, and I could see why it inspired all those movies or all those games. But it's so strange because it's like they wanted to make a comic book movie, but there were no comics at the time that they wanted to adapt, so they made this whole world. So imagine if like Dick Tracy met the Warriors. Do you remember the movie The
Yeah.
Warriors?
The
And you remember
Warriors,
Dick
yeah, I
Tracy?
definitely remember. Yeah.
And like Dick Tracy and like Happy Days,
Okay.
the TV show
Yeah,
Happy
okay.
Days, like
Yeah,
all
yeah,
met
yeah.
each other. That's what this movie is. It's so bizarre, and the soundtrack is
Interesting.
crazy.
And it's on Netflix right now? I'm going to have to
Yeah,
check it out.
Willem Dafoe is the villain, and he's incredible in it. And like the way they introduce him, like I'm just gonna spoil just the intro. Like he
That's fine.
kidnaps a famous singer, and the singer's friend calls her brother, who's an ex-soldier, and her ex-boyfriend to rescue her. But the way the movie starts is like she's on stage singing, and you see a group of guys come into the venue where she's performing, but they're shrouded in like shadow. Like you don't see them, you just see their outline, and they just
Okay.
get closer, and they keep intercutting with her singing, right? And they do a close up of his face, and it's Willem Dafoe, but you don't know that, and it keeps cutting back and forth, and then it just sort of like he starts getting like brighter and brighter, like they shine a light on him, like you just see his eyes, and then it gets brighter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've never seen a villain intro as cool as that. The only thing I've seen as cool was Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, the way they introduced him in that movie,
Yeah. His
or
shot.
even Bane,
Like,
the way they introduced Bane.
Bane
in
was
Dark
awesome
Knight
too,
Rises.
yeah.
It's like that level, awesome. So
Oh, okay. You're selling it to me. I love it. So I got to watch
you're
it
gonna
for
hate
sure.
it. You're definitely gonna hate.
I'm
the
going to
movie.
hate it?
Yeah, the dialogue is awful and the acting is bad,
So it's one of those movies that it's one of those movies where it's like it's so bad that it's good.
yes, but visually it's beautiful. Like I think you'll
Okay.
appreciate the lighting. There's a lot of rain in it, and it definitely inspired David Fincher. It inspired Paul Verhoeven when he made RoboCop, and when David Fincher made Seven. Like it has that look to it. So I think you're gonna like it.
Okay, I'll
Especially
check
as
that
well.
one out.
Yeah.
What funny with William Dafoe? Like I've always seen him in some weird movies. Like I remember it was actually my first trip to California with Craig and Nico because they got into a Stranger Things show,
Oh yeah.
and Craig's brother-in-law showed us the movie Boondock Saints,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, and William Dafoe's in it, and then like that one scene it was weird to see him do that, but that was like earlier in his career, so it was just like, and now hearing that he did that movie too, I was just like,
Yeah.
I guess that fits for during that time when he was working.
Yeah. He's a
But
great actor. He's
oh
one of
yeah,
my favorites.
have you seen The Lighthouse yet?
Yeah, me and my wife watched that last year. We were like, "What the fuck?"
That one is weird. It's just a lot of like you have to know a lot of mythology to really fully understand everything. It has so many like innuendos and stuff, but dude, he can play an amazing crazy person.
Oh, he's one of the best ever.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think. He was great as the Green Goblin. He was great
of
in
course.
Platoon.
Yeah,
Did you ever see Platoon?
Platoon.
That was like his
I
most
see.
famous role.
I feel like I've seen it, but I forget that he was even in there.
Yeah,
It's like one of those ones that I've seen like years ago.
yeah. You should. I think that's on Netflix. I caught it last year again. It's an incredible movie, and he plays more of a straight laced type of guy, but he's so good. I'm trying to think where I saw him, and he was totally batshit crazy. I get his movies confused with Chris Walken's movies because Chris Walken is like equally batshit
Yeah,
crazy movies. But yeah, you should definitely check it out. Diane Lane is in it. You know Diane Lane?
I'm bad with
She,
names. Can you?
she played Martha Kent in Batman vs Superman.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's like 18 in this movie. Like it doesn't even look like her. She plays like the singer. It's a trip, man. It's really it's a fun movie.
Yeah, I just watched John Wick. Like I was telling you, I was on the at the gym, I just watched John Wick while I was working out, and I totally forgot that he was in that movie in the
Yeah, he
beginning.
was.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah, and it's like another like kind of like role that usually he plays the crazy guy, and then this one he was just like an assassin, but it wasn't as crazy. He was just a
yeah,
killer.
yeah.
But have you seen Wrath of Man yet?
No, my brother did, and he keeps telling me I should watch it.
Dude, I was me and Craig and like all our friends were just like walking into that movie like, all right, it's gonna be an action movie. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah,
It blew our minds, dude. It was
good.
great, and we shouldn't have never like said like it was gonna be okay because it's Guy Ritchie. That guy seems to always deliver now.
Yeah,
Like,
that's on my list of movies to watch. The last thing we
yes,
watched
it's
was
a fun one.
we haven't really seen anything new that was good. It's been like a lot of popcorn movies like Mortal Kombat, which was awful. Godzilla vs Kong.
Yeah, it started off really good though.
Yeah, it
It was
did.
just it was just like, oh, it's gonna be legit. They're in the woods, and then it cuts
Yeah,
to like,
yeah,
a lot of movies do that now.
yeah. They do.
um, I've seen Cruella. That they did that one good. That was like one of their better live actions that they've done.
Yeah,
Emma Stone plays a really good crazy person. And then what I like about that one is like they're teetering on the line of like showing like because Cruella's evil, but
right,
like you're teetering on the line like, oh, I get it, but also like she's like an asshole kind of thing.
right.
And it had like there were scenes there that was just like reminded me of Joker, which is another like amazing movie.
Yeah.
Like there's this one scene like she goes to the fountain and stuff, and it's just like, oh, I see where you got the inspiration for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's another one you should definitely check out.
Did you ever see a movie called Drive with Ryan Gosling?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay.
dude.
Good, good. All
Mm.
right, cool. I'm glad
Rory
you see it.
Kurtz poster of that dude. Oh my gosh, that's an I. It's another artist that I've been dying to like figure out his style. I don't know how he does what he does.
He's just you know what I do a lot is I always look up an artist's process. I Google it, and you'd be amazed what comes up. And he does these really tight graphite drawings.
Yeah, like
That's
I've
all
seen the
work.
line art for it. I just don't know his color process. That's like what I'm trying to figure
Right.
out.
Yeah.
Like his
I'm,
Ex Machina poster, dude,
yeah.
with like the intricacies of the inside of like her arms and stuff. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah. No, he's definitely like a legit graphite artist, and he just throws color on it, and because there's some amazing graphite artists out there that don't do this stuff, and he just
Yeah,
happens to do it. So that's like the girl I was telling you that didn't get into the Halloween book. She's like just as good as Rory Kurtz, does all that graphite stuff, and then digitally colors it, and she didn't make it in. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. Like
yeah,
she's that
man.
good. It's crazy.
Greg Ruth is another one, and with him, he kind of just throws like a gradient on it, and it just works perfectly.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, those amazing people, man.
yeah.
Maybe I'll get him on here. Who knows? We'll see.
Hope so. Just reach out to him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So then, what's a movie that you could watch over and over again?
Oh God, How much time do we have? Because I have so much. There's so many movies I could name.
Uh, give me your top two.
Oh, well, my wife hates Karate Kid 2 because I watch it every single time it comes on. That it's on the verge of being banned in this house. Um,
Oh boy.
Big Trouble in Little China. I could watch that
Okay.
movie.
Yeah.
Like that's like my favorite movie. Like one of my top 10 movies. Um, I could watch that every single time it comes on. Rocky Four,
Mm.
Casino, A
Mm-hmm.
Bronx Tale, any of the Lethal Weapon movies, Die
Okay.
Hard 1 and 3. any
Die
Rambo
Hard,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah, I could
I
watch those. Point
Mine is
Break.
just like
Point
all
Break is one of
Quentin
my favorites.
Tarantino. Like
What's
with
that?
Quentin Tarantino, I'll just like throw on a movie in the background while I'm drawing. Like I don't even have to like see it to know what's happening, and then
Yeah,
just like work through that.
yeah.
Let me see. Which famous person would you like to get to know?
Oh, Bruce Lee, without a doubt. Yeah,
Mm, yeah.
yeah.
How do you like how Tarantino like portrayed him in his last movie?
You know, the actor was phenomenal, and
Yeah,
he was probably the best on-screen Bruce Lee I've seen. I At first I was annoyed with how he portrayed him, like getting beat up. Well, not beat up, but but you know, there is a story of Bruce Lee getting when he was on the Green Hornet. There's a guy named Gene LaBelle, and his nickname was Judo Gene LaBelle, and he was kind of like Brad Pitt was in that movie, like a real tough guy.
yeah,
And there's a story of him on the set of the Green Hornet picking up Bruce Lee over his back like a fireman carry and carrying him around the set. And Bruce Lee was like, "You motherfucker! Like, God damn it, put me down, put me down!" Like he was pissed. So, Bruce Lee was young at the time, so it's not out of question for Bruce to be in like a scrap like that because he would fight. He'd fight a lot, and
yeah.
but in the movie, it serves its purpose because it's what makes that movie so good is that ending, right? Because it all sort
Exactly.
of
Yeah,
leads up to him just dismantling those people, and it's like, well, how can this guy pull this off? He's just a stuntman. Oh, like he can go toe to toe with Bruce Lee, so this guy can like handle his own. So when I looked at it from that perspective, I ended up liking it a lot more.
hmm
I kind of like, okay, like it makes sense. It fits the fictional tone of that movie, basically. So that's what I was
yeah.
thinking.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I don't even
yeah.
know who I would want yet. I think you're one of the first few people I actually ask. I always forget to ask that one because it's an interesting one to see.
Yeah.
But all right, so listen, man, I could talk to you for hours, so but we gotta cut it short. It's a podcast.
Yeah, I
I,
get it.
we gotta finish it. But is there anything you want to promote? Anything? Where can people find you? All that jazz.
They can find me Twitter at Bellotti_John, or they can find me Instagram at Robo7, which is just ROBOSEVEN, because someone else had the Robo number 7.
Yeah.
Facebook, John Bellotti Jr., or my website, www.robo7.com, and it's ROBO, the number 7.com. And all my contact info is on there, including social media.
Awesome.
As far as what I have coming up, I got a comic book cover for a studio called Last Bastion Studios, who I do a lot of work for. I have the Printed in Blood book coming out. I have another header card project coming up that I can't talk about yet. But when I do, it's going to be a very, very exciting job that I'm really beyond ecstatic that I have the opportunity to do. So, but
Awesome,
those are the
man.
things
That's
I
good
have.
to hear.
Yeah, no, those are the things I have coming up. So,
Perfect. All right. So, everybody, thank you for listening. John, don't leave yet, but I'm just going to
okay,
stop the recording soon. But
okay,
again, everybody, thank you for listening in, and please wait for next week.